The very first day after we tied the knot, my new wife brought her younger brother right into our marital home. She did not just hover over him every single second to take care of him. She even slept right beside him in his bed at night. At first, I let it slide. My brother-in-law had a severely busted leg and could barely get around, plus their parents passed away when they were young. Honestly, I did not think too much of it, but here is the kicker. We had been married for 6 solid months, and we still had not even slept together once. Tonight, I tried to finally be intimate with my wife, Evelyn, and guess what? I failed. Again. We had barely just taken off our clothes when the loud, sharp crash of shattering glass echoed from the room right next door. Evelyn instantly shoved me away in a panic and bolted to check on him. After a whole burst of chaos, things finally quieted down, but our private moment as husband and wife? Completely ruined. 6 whole months of being a married couple, and we still had not crossed the finish line. My own wife, Evelyn Hayes, clearly cared way more about her younger brother, Ethan, than she ever did about me. We barely even spent any real time together. All because Evelyn was constantly dragging him to the hospital for treatments. Ever since Ethan messed up his leg, he had been totally confined to a wheelchair. Evelyn desperately wanted him to walk again. And hey, there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. But that did not give her a free pass to treat me like a ghost. No matter how incredibly patient I tried to be, I was finally reaching my breaking point. I just felt so ridiculous, so completely pathetic. How in the world did I let myself sink this low? Doctor, you really do not look well. Are you feeling sick? A patient's family member who bumped into me in the restroom asked with genuine concern. I forced a stiff smile and muttered, "Just a little. I am getting off work soon. I will just head home and rest for a bit." Honestly, I had zero idea what else that person even said to me. I had already fled the scene in total embarrassment. After ducking out of the restroom, I did the only thing I could do. I ditched my white coat and headed home early. The second I walked through the front door, I heard Ethan laughing happily. "Really, sis?" I quietly crept toward Ethan's bedroom. The door was cracked wide open. Evelyn was half kneeling right there on the floor, gazing up at him. "Really?" she whispered so gently. "Ethan, you are so incredibly good to me." As he spoke, Ethan actually cupped my wife's face in his hands and kissed her right on the cheek. The smack of it was sickeningly loud and clear. Seeing that twisted little scene, my face instantly flushed with pure rage. These two had absolutely zero boundaries whatsoever. Look, it was one thing for Ethan to constantly cling to his big sister like a lost puppy, but what the hell were they actually doing right now? Just then, Evelyn spotted me standing frozen in the doorway. She casually stood up and strolled over with a sweet smile. "Caleb, you are back early. I will go start on dinner. Be a dear and give Ethan a leg massage for me, okay?" After dropping that bomb, she just hummed and walked off toward the kitchen like nothing weird had even happened. Not a single ounce of guilt on her face over what I had just walked in on. It was like absolutely nothing had happened at all. I found the whole thing utterly laughable. Suddenly, I spun around and glared daggers right at Evelyn's back. I snapped. "When you married me back then, was it seriously just so you would have a live-in caretaker for your brother?" Evelyn's footsteps instantly froze. She slowly turned back to look at me, her eyes wide open and entirely full of utter disbelief. She was clearly panicking. Honestly, I did not know if it was because I finally caught her in her guilt, or because she just cared a little too much about her precious secret. In just a few quick steps, she rushed right up to me, looking at me with pure nervous energy. "Caleb, babe, how could that even be possible? If you do not want to massage him, then do not do it. I would never try to force you. Why in the world would you suddenly say something so cruel today? Did someone say something nasty to turn you against us?" The icy glare I gave my wife just kept growing colder and colder. "Just answer my question." Evelyn stepped even closer and wrapped her arms tightly around my waist, her eyes suddenly brimming with sweet tenderness. "No, Caleb. I married you because I love you. I really love you, Caleb." I was totally thrown off by such a brutally direct confession. I never expected Evelyn, who was usually so emotionally closed off, to suddenly drop something so openly romantic on me. But I did not let her words mess with my head. Why? Because right over her shoulder, I saw her crippled brother, Ethan, actually standing right behind her, and there was a twisted, intensely jealous kind of love burning right in his eyes. Even though it only lasted for a split second, I still caught it red-handed. There was 100% something extremely messed up going on between those two siblings. I did not blow up and confront them right then, but the very next morning, the second Evelyn left for work, I faked being incredibly sick and called out of the hospital for the day. "Caleb, honey, are you really not going into work today?" Evelyn asked with total fake concern. I laid back in bed and groaned, putting on my best performance. My body just feels incredibly weak. I really need to stay home and rest up today. All right, well, if Ethan needs any help getting around, please help him out, okay? I am heading to the office right now, she said. She even leaned down and gave me a sweet little kiss right on the forehead. Now, if this had been a few months ago, that tiny little gesture from my wife would have honestly filled my entire heart with pure joy. But today, it just made my skin crawl. I wanted to violently shove her away. Still, I swallowed my disgust and acted like absolutely nothing was wrong. Only after I heard the front door click shut behind her did I finally crawl out of the bedroom like a predator stalking its prey. When I lazily shuffled out into our living room, there was Ethan, just chilling in his wheelchair watching TV. When he noticed my weak little act, he put on a concerned face. "Caleb, bro, are you feeling sick?" I slowly walked over to the living room sofa and casually flopped back against the cushions. "Oh, you know how it is. It is entirely your sister's fault. She completely wore me out last night. I dropped the bait on purpose, lacing every single word with hidden meaning, just quietly watching for his reaction. Ethan's eyes instantly widened in sheer panic. He pressed, "What exactly did my sister do to you? Tell me the truth. I'll talk to her for you." I let out a heavy sigh. A faint, almost invisible look of smug happiness spread across my face. Things between a husband and wife aren't something a kid like you would ever understand. I deliberately made my words sound vague and deeply suggestive. In reality, last night Evelyn hadn't even let me touch a single finger of hers. She fell asleep 3 seconds after lying down. Ethan bit his lip hard and didn't ask anything else. But from that moment on, he stayed completely distracted. Even his absolute favorite TV drama, which he usually loved watching every single day, just couldn't hold his attention anymore. I lay back on the sofa, quietly observing Ethan the entire time. Deep in my heart, I became even more certain that there was something deeply suspicious going on between these two siblings. At the very least, Ethan's feelings for his older sister were definitely not pure and innocent. At lunchtime, I was honestly too lazy to cook, so I just ordered takeout. When Evelyn called us on video, Ethan and I were right in the middle of eating. "Why are you two eating takeout?" "Caleb, did you seriously not cook lunch today?" Evelyn asked with heavy concern. Before I could even speak, Ethan jumped in to explain first. "Sis, don't blame Caleb. I suddenly really wanted some takeout, so I asked Caleb to buy it for us. If you want to blame someone, just blame me." Evelyn's gaze instantly softened into pure adoration. With a deep hint of heartache in her gentle voice, she said, "You silly boy, how could I ever blame you? I can't even spoil you enough. Sis is the absolute best. Sis is the best sister in the whole wide world." As Ethan said that so sweetly, he burst into bright, innocent laughter. I just kept eating with my head lowered, silently listening to those two siblings calling each other sister and brother in such uncomfortably intimate and affectionate words. My hand tightened firmly around my chopsticks, but the moment I lifted my head, there was still a perfect, warm smile plastered right on my face, just exactly like usual. I revealed absolutely no flaws in my act. In the past, I really had been way too utterly stupid. I had actually failed to see that the twisted bond between these siblings was anything but pure. Right after Ethan hung up the video call, he turned and smiled at me. "Caleb, next time, if you're ever afraid my sister will get mad at you, just put all the blame right on me. My sister loves me the most. She definitely won't ever blame me." I just smiled back and said calmly, "How could your sister ever blame me? She's the gentlest woman in the whole world, especially toward me. She was simply caring in every single possible way. She always paid such special attention to my feelings, after all." The happier I looked on the outside, the stiffer Ethan's expression became. I looked right at Ethan in front of me, completely unable to stop myself from sneering inwardly. Anyway, I had already firmly made up my mind to divorce Evelyn, so, in these final few days, I had to cause them just a little bit of trouble. Otherwise, what would all the miserable things I had suffered before even count for? That evening, when Evelyn finally came home from work, the very first thing she saw when she walked in was her obedient, sweet younger brother and me, looking incredibly busy in the kitchen. "Sis, you're back! Sis, you worked so hard today!" Evelyn just smiled gently at him. After changing her shoes and taking off her heavy coat, she did not immediately rush over to Ethan like she usually would. Instead, she walked straight toward the kitchen. Ethan quickly turned and glared at her back, then dramatically pouted. A faint, bitter spark of pure anger flashed right in his eyes. I knew full well that Evelyn had come back, but I pretended not to notice and kept working seriously on the dinner. Suddenly, a soft pair of arms wrapped tight around my waist. Evelyn hugged me lovingly from behind. "Weren't you feeling unwell today? You really could have just waited for me to come back and cook." Evelyn spoke so gently right behind me. In the past, I genuinely loved hearing her say sweet, caring things like that, as well as these soft, intimate touches between husband and wife. As long as she said a few kind words or hugged me like this, I could feel so deeply happy inside for a really long time. But at this exact moment, I knew very, very clearly that this woman was not only like this with me, she was exactly the same way with her precious younger brother. After replaying everything in my head all day long, I had completely seen through this lying woman's true intentions. The only reason she had ever chosen to marry me back then was purely because when Ethan had been hospitalized, I had taken such incredibly careful care of him. To put it bluntly, she just wanted to find a free, loyal caregiver. She just wanted someone to help share the heavy burden of taking care of her sick brother. Sometimes, people wake up to the cold truth in an instant, and that was exactly what just happened to me. But at that moment, I did not show even a single ounce of discomfort. Just like usual, I laughed softly and said, "All right, stop being so incredibly clingy." Ethan was intensely watching Evelyn. She immediately let go of me and smiled. "All right, keep working hard. I'll go change my clothes and come right back to help you." I smiled warmly as I watched her leave the dining room. But then, right in the living room, I saw Ethan with bright, reddened eyes. "Ethan, what's wrong?" Evelyn hurried forward so anxiously and knelt down on one knee right on the carpet. Completely at a loss, she gently wiped Ethan's falling tears for him. Ethan cried so pitifully. "Sis, I'm totally fine. I just got way too moved watching the drama on TV." Only then did Evelyn finally relax her tense shoulders. She smiled warmly and stroked his hair. "You silly boy. Everything on TV is totally fake. Sis, will you ever hate me? Will you ever leave me behind? Will you love me forever?" Ethan sobbed out loud. Evelyn wiped Ethan's messy tears with deep heartache and said so seriously, "I will always love you. How could I ever hate you or leave you? Don't get it twisted, sis. You're still number one in my heart. I'll love you forever, too." Hearing those sickening words, Ethan finally cracked a tearful, triumphant smirk. Standing there in the kitchen, my blood ran cold. It felt like my entire body had been violently shoved into a freezing icebox. How the hell had I been so utterly blind? Before today, whenever I saw a scene like this, I just assumed they were a super close brother and sister. I never once suspected the twisted truth hiding right under my nose. Taking a deep, shuddering breath, I forced my pounding heart to calm down. Shoving down the absolute disgust, I plastered a warm smile on my face, walked out, and squatted right next to Ethan, perfectly mirroring Evelyn's protective posture. "Hey, Ethan, you're not alone in this anymore," I said softly. "You've got your sister, and you've got me. We're always going to love you." I stared into his eyes with total sincerity, acting like I truly saw him as my own precious little brother. But Ethan just gave me a dry, hollow smirk and turned away. "Sis, I'm a little tired," he whined. "I want to go lie down in bed for a bit. Can you come cuddle with me?" Without skipping a single beat, Evelyn agreed. She actually picked him up and carried him straight into his bedroom. And after that, my wife never stepped back out. I knew exactly what that manipulative brat was doing. Ethan was throwing out every pathetic excuse in the book just to keep Evelyn locked in there with him all night long. I was totally blind to it before, but the second the ugly truth hit me, every single creepy little detail of our daily life suddenly made perfect sense. Yet, even knowing how messed up this was, my heart still shattered. A toxic mix of betrayal and bitter resentment started spreading through my chest like wildfire. I had poured my heart and soul into taking care of these two, and this was the sick joke I got in return. The sheer agony of it was practically unbearable. Hours later, Evelyn finally sneaked back into our bedroom. I was wide awake in the dark. Rolling over, I played the part of the needy husband and wrapped my arms tightly around her waist. "Why are you coming to bed so late?" I mumbled. Evelyn stiffened, clearly caught off guard. "Caleb, why aren't you asleep yet?" she whispered. "I just couldn't sleep without you right here beside me." I lied with a gentle sigh. Evelyn playfully pinched the bridge of my nose. "Ethan watched a terrifying horror movie earlier today, and the poor guy was just too scared to sleep alone. So, I just had to stay and comfort him for a bit. But look, I'm back now. Can my big baby finally go to sleep?" I forced a fake smile and nodded obediently. Then, I shut my eyes like a good little boy. Click. Evelyn turned off the lamp, plunging the entire room into pitch-black darkness. The second the lights went out, that pathetic smile completely vanished from my face. Listening to my wife fall fast asleep in mere seconds, I laid there, eyes wide open, staring at the ceiling. What a load of absolute garbage. I had been with Ethan the entire damn day. When exactly did he have the time to watch a horror movie? He only forced Evelyn to stay in his bed because he was terrified that she and I might actually be intimate as a normal husband and wife. The time for playing dumb was over. It was finally time to lay all my cards on the table and confront Evelyn face to face. A few days later, I booked a fancy private room at a high-end restaurant and asked my wife out for dinner. Shockingly, she totally refused at first. It was only after I begged, pleaded, and eventually blew a fuse, yelling at her over the phone, that she finally gave in and reluctantly agreed to show up. I walked into that private room dressed to the absolute nines, looking like $1,000,000. Catching Evelyn's stunned, jaw-dropped expression, I played it cool and asked, "So, what are you craving tonight?" "Dinner is entirely on me tonight." Evelyn was definitely blown away by how good I looked, but surprise, surprise, her mind immediately snapped right back to Ethan. The warmth drained from her face, replaced by an icy glare. "Caleb, aren't you just stirring up unnecessary drama? Here we are, eating out and having fun, while we just left poor Ethan home all by himself. Do you honestly think this is appropriate behavior?" Wow. Not a single damn question about how I was doing. I stayed perfectly chill. Lowering my head, I casually looked down at the menu. I flipped through it painfully slowly, scanning every single page, until Evelyn finally lost her patience and snatched the menu right out of my hands. "Hey! I am talking to you," she snapped. I slowly raised my head and locked eyes with her, totally unfazed. "Today is my birthday, Evelyn." She froze like a deer in headlights. The guilt hit her so hard she actually whipped out her phone just to check the calendar. Her rigid expression cracked, and her bossy tone finally softened up a bit. "Oh, well then, why didn't we just celebrate at home, leaving Ethan all alone? Is it really that incredibly hard for me to get just one single night alone with my own wife?" I sliced right through her pathetic excuse. My voice was dangerously calm, making Evelyn look deeply uncomfortable. "No, Caleb, come on. You can't be this unreasonable. You know Ethan is already so lonely, staying home by himself all the time. Every single day, he waits and waits, just desperately hoping we'll hurry home from work and keep him company." I was so wildly pissed off that a dark laugh actually escaped my lips. "I'm the one being unreasonable? Let's get real. Ethan is only waiting for you to come home and keep him company. As for me, in your eyes, I've never been a husband. From day one, I've just been a glorified babysitter, a pathetic, unpaid servant." "Caleb, how could you say something so horrible?" she gasped. "Haven't I always treated you well? So what if I just happened to forget your birthday today? Does that really give you the right to be so cruel?" Evelyn spat back, her voice dripping with defensive anger. Without warning, I pushed my chair back, stood up, and slammed both hands down hard on the table. "Evelyn, you seriously don't have a single shred of conscience left, do you?" Hearing that, her face flushed with pure fury. "You're the one throwing a ridiculous tantrum." I turned my back on her with eyes as cold as ice. "We're getting a divorce." I dropped the bomb. Evelyn just watched me walk away. As I disappeared through the doorway, she sneered, "A divorce? If you leave me, who the hell is going to pay for your food and clothes? Who's going to let you blow through cash so easily? Who are you even trying to scare with this little bluff?" She let out a cold, arrogant snort, dramatically adjusted her collar, and stormed right out of the restaurant. She dashed back home. but I wasn't about to follow her. That night, I didn't even go back. Instead, I checked myself into a 5-star hotel and called up my best buddy to keep me company. We even hit the pool tables for a bit, just trying to blow off some steam and relax. Wait, you want to divorce Evelyn? Ryan practically launched himself out of his chair. Isn't she like the total package? She's gorgeous and completely loaded. I just looked at him calmly. She didn't want a husband, man. She wanted a full-time caregiver. The only reason she even liked me back then was because of my job. She figured I'd be the perfect guy to nurse her precious brother. Ryan's face instantly twisted into a complicated knot. He tried to calm me down, saying, "Hey, maybe you're just overthinking things. Her brother really is sick and needs someone to look after him." I kept my voice dead flat. "Dude, we haven't even consummated our marriage yet. Every single time we try, it gets ruined because of her brother." Ryan just stared at me, totally stunned. You could literally see his entire worldview crumbling. Man, I never would have guessed Evelyn could pull something like that. It gets worse. The other day, I saw her brother grab her face and kiss her, I continued. My 3 massive truth bombs hit Ryan so hard, he was completely speechless. After what felt like an eternity, he finally set his jaw and said, "Okay, yeah, this marriage absolutely has to end." For the next few days, Evelyn blew up my phone trying to reach me, but I ghosted her completely. Eventually, she must have lost her patience. She sent me a long text on WhatsApp. "Caleb, don't push your luck and reject my kindness, or you're gonna regret it. I am giving you an out right now, so you better take it." In response, I instantly had the divorce papers delivered straight to her door. The very next morning, Evelyn actually showed up at the hospital where I worked. She was standing right outside the inpatient building, holding this massive bouquet of bright red roses. The second she spotted me, she plastered on a sweet smile and hurried over. Dropping her voice into a soft, coaxing tone, she pleaded, "Caleb, I was wrong, okay? Please don't be mad anymore." I barely even glanced at her. "Oh? And what exactly did you do wrong?" "Everything, okay? I was wrong about everything. Come on, be the bigger person and just let it go, Caleb," she chirped, that fake smile still glued to her face. My expression just got colder by the second. I could tell right then and there, Evelyn still had absolutely zero clue what the real problem was between us. So, I decided to spell it out for her. "You want me to forgive you? Fine. Let's move out and get our own place. You can just work a little harder and commute back and forth to take care of your precious Ethan." The smile vanished from Evelyn's face in a flash. Her brows snapped together in a tight scowl. "Caleb, seriously? Can you stop acting like a spoiled brat? You are literally Ethan's brother-in-law. Isn't it your basic duty to step up and help take care of him? Where did the kind, caring guy I married even go?" I just stared at her with ice in my veins, totally unfazed. "If you refuse to move out, then sign the damn papers. Let's just end this on decent terms." Evelyn lost it and chucked the bouquet of roses straight into the dirt, glaring at me like she wanted me dead. "Why the hell should I sign anything?" she shrieked. "Listen to me, Caleb. If you really want a divorce, don't you dare think you're getting a single cent out of me." "Fine by me," I shot back. "Since you're so unhappy with the divorce agreement I drafted, go ahead and write up a better one, then mail it to me. I honestly never want to see your face again." After dropping that line, I sidestepped her and started to walk away, but Evelyn snatched my sleeve, holding on tight. "Caleb, admit it. You've got some other woman on the side, don't you?" That was the exact moment my normally steady temper finally snapped. I violently ripped my arm out of her grip. I glared right into her eyes with pure ice. "Evelyn, do you honestly believe your sick little secret with Ethan was going to stay hidden from me forever? Do you think I'm a complete idiot? And now you have the nerve to try and flip the script on me?" Evelyn's face went totally pale with shock. "Caleb, what on earth are you talking about? What's supposedly so wrong with me and Ethan? We are literal biological siblings." I just let out a harsh sneer. "Oh, so what if you're blood? Does being siblings mean you get a free pass to completely ignore all basic human boundaries? Take a good, hard look at every single creepy detail of how you two act together. Are you seriously going to tell me that's pure and innocent?" With that said, I shoved past her. I completely tuned out Evelyn as she threw a massive tantrum, stomping her feet in absolute frustration, and I never once looked back. My mind was all over the place for the rest of the day. mostly because Evelyn refused to stop spamming my phone with messages, saying she was totally fine with buying a new place together, as long as it was in the same neighborhood so she could still easily check on Ethan. She even swore up and down that I would never have to lift a finger for Ethan again. From now on, she promised to handle his care completely on her own. She kept backtracking, saying she just hadn't thought things through properly before and made a mistake. Caleb, our parents passed away so early on. Ethan is literally the only family I have left. The bond between us has always been super strong. You are totally misunderstanding our dynamic. But as for the boundary issues you brought up, I promise I'll be way more careful from now on. Ethan and I were just so used to playfully joking around like that, but I swear I'm gonna change. I absolutely will never cross that line again. Caleb, baby, please don't be mad at me anymore, okay? I'll come pick you up right after work. Let's just go home, all right? Evelyn mercilessly bombarded my screen with paragraph after paragraph. I didn't reply to a single one of them all day. That is, until evening hit, and Evelyn magically reappeared at the hospital's entrance. Only this time, she wasn't armed with cheap flowers. Nope, she was holding a fancy shopping bag from a high-end luxury brand. She walked right up to me, a sickeningly sweet smile plastered on her face. Caleb, this is for you. I glanced down at what she was holding, and man, I was completely blindsided. What are you? Why the hell did you drop so much cash on a designer bag? I stammered. I know you've had your eye on it, Evelyn murmured, her voice dripping with fake tenderness. When we passed by the display window the other day, I saw how you kept staring at it. Her perfect plastic smile didn't waver for a single second. Before I could even get another word out, she lunged forward and wrapped her arms tightly around me. You're so silly, she whispered. I'd buy you anything you want, babe. I'd sell every single thing I own just to make you happy. I love you. I really, truly love you. And Caleb, I'm never signing those divorce papers. Hearing that, my stomach dropped. Getting rid of this woman wasn't going to be a walk in the park after all. Evelyn was completely obsessed. She'd never just let me walk away. If I wanted out of this hellhole of a marriage, taking her to court was my only play. But to win a lawsuit, I needed rock-solid evidence, and I had to strike first. I subtly pulled back, slipping out of her embrace. Keeping my cool, I just muttered, I'm not going back to live in that house. She didn't miss a beat. Okay, fine. Then I'll buy us a new place as soon as possible, all right? Just bear with it for the next 2 days, honey. Just stay at a nice hotel for now. As she spoke, she whipped out her phone and wired $20,000 straight to my account, right in front of my face. I scowled. What the hell is this? I have my own money. It's only natural for a husband to spend his wife's money, she cooed. Treat yourself to a 5-star suite for the next 2 days. Don't you dare let yourself suffer, Evelyn added, her face twisting into this sickening mask of pity. She reached up and gently stroked my hair, her touch overwhelmingly tender. I kept my head down, swallowing my disgust, and gave a stiff nod. Fine. Her sweet words were total garbage, considering this very woman was the source of my absolute worst nightmares. Testing the waters, I asked, Want to grab dinner with me? Evelyn checked her watch, her face immediately dropping into an apologetic pout. Oh, Ethan's at home waiting for me to make dinner. Why don't you just come back with me? I can cook a huge meal for both of my favorite guys. I almost laughed. Big shocker there. I hadn't expected a damn thing from her in the first place. I completely froze her out. No thanks. I'll order room service. All right then. Let me at least drive you, she insisted. Starting that night, I went back to actually replying to her texts. I just kept it brief, barely giving her the time of day. She, on the other hand, went into total overdrive. She practically spammed my phone, giving me a play-by-play of every waking second of her boring life. She was laying it on incredibly thick, showering me with random gifts and setting up all these stupid little surprises. At night, she wouldn't leave me alone, constantly blowing up my phone with video calls. On those calls, I could clearly see Evelyn sleeping all by herself in our massive master bedroom. She'd stay on the line watching me every single night until I dozed off, flashing me right back to our honeymoon phase. She was trying so damn hard to prove I had absolutely nothing to worry about. But honestly, the more she played the perfect, devoted wife, the more my alarm bells were ringing. I mean, think about it. Why was it that the second I moved out, Ethan suddenly stopped clinging to his precious older sister? It finally clicked. Every single obnoxious thing that kid did was just to get under my skin because he hated my guts. But the real kicker? This afternoon, Ethan actually showed up at my hospital uninvited. He rolled right up in that fancy electric wheelchair of his, putting on his usual innocent puppy dog act. "Caleb, I really need to talk to you," he mumbled. I arched an eyebrow. "Sure. Let's hear it." I won't lie. I was dying to know what this manipulative little brat wanted with me. We headed out together toward the quiet, secluded hospital courtyard. Not once did he ask for my help getting there. He maneuvered that joystick with absolute perfection, dodging every bump in the road with total ease. I had always known the truth. Ethan was nowhere near the frail, helpless invalid he pretended to be. The pathetic weakling routine? That was an exclusive VIP performance just for Evelyn. And man, he deserved an Oscar for it. He played her like a damn fiddle. Nobody else could see through his mask. "Here is fine," I said, leaning against a massive willow tree and staring him down with dead eyes. Ethan offered up a soft, totally fake smile. Putting on his best innocent voice, he asked, "Caleb, how come you haven't been coming home lately? Did you and my big sister get into a fight?" I just let out a non-committal grunt. I wasn't giving him an inch until I figured out what his actual game was. "Oh wait, I know, you guys fought because of me, right? I feel so awful about it. I hate seeing her upset." Ethan dramatically lowered his eyes, playing the role of the sensible, sweet younger brother to a T. Even so, I didn't take the bait. I kept my mouth completely shut. I just stared a hole right through him. He sure had a way with words. I'll give him that. But if he really gave a damn about Evelyn's feelings, he wouldn't have pulled all those twisted stunts in the first place. I knew exactly what was going on in his head. He knew exactly what he was doing, and every single move was coldly calculated. Seeing that my icy silence wasn't breaking, Ethan's polite facade cracked, his eyes going pitch black. He leaned in and smirked. "Do you want to know a little secret, Caleb? My sister and we aren't actually related by blood." "What the hell?" My eyes went wide in pure shock. Catching my slip in composure, a sickeningly smug grin spread across Ethan's face, but he quickly forced it back into a sweet smile. "Wow. So, she really never told you, huh? I guess she doesn't actually love you all that much, Caleb. I mean, think about it. If she really cared, why would she keep a massive, life-altering secret like that from her own husband?" His words hit me like a damn freight train. In a split second, every single memory of my life with Evelyn came flashing violently across my mind. "Dr. Cole, you've been such an absolute angel to me and my little brother. You're honestly the greatest person I've ever met in this entire world. I am totally crazy about you, Caleb. Marry me. I will let you spend every single dime I make. The house will be strictly in your name, and everything I own will be yours. I love you, Caleb. I swear I will treat you like a king for the rest of my life." Yeah, right. From day one, Evelyn had played me for an absolute fool. She lied straight to my face. And like an idiot, I had fallen headfirst into the sweet, sick trap this woman spun for me. Seeing my eyes well up with furious tears, Ethan just stared at me, his tone sickeningly calm. "Look, Caleb, maybe my sister was just scared you would freak out if you knew the actual truth. After all, she flat out told me I am the one she loves most in this world. You? You are only ever going to be a runner-up." His smug words snapped me right back to reality. I zeroed in on Ethan's soft, punchable little face. I took a breath and hit him back with a deadpan voice. "Did you know your precious sister is already buying a new house?" Ethan instantly froze. That arrogant smirk vanished from his lips. I let the silence hang for a second before continuing. "She told me you are her only family left, and since you are disabled, the odds of you ever finding a wife are pretty much zero. So, she is going to take care of you for the rest of your pathetic life. But do not get it twisted, that is all it is. Babysitting." Underneath his sleeves, I could see Ethan's hands trembling as he clenched them into white-knuckled fists. Not willing to back down, he spat out. "She is totally playing you. Do you even know why she married your sorry self? It is simply because you are a doctor. You know exactly how to play nurse and take care of people. With you looking after me, she can finally relax when she is away. Are you really that blind? I am the only one on her mind, 24/7. I might have been a sucker once, but I had figured out their twisted game a long time ago. My heart was already pure ice." But there was no way in hell I was letting this punk win. Wow. I really hope your sister backs up everything you just said. As the words left my mouth, I casually pulled my phone from my pocket. The screen was brightly lit, showing an active voice recording. Ethan's face drained of color. The innocent victim act completely shattered, replaced by pure, unadulterated rage. You are absolute trash, Caleb. I played dumb, tilting my head. Me? Trash? How so? I was just worried my memory might slip, so I hit record. I just wanted a little replay for later. No big deal. Ethan panicked. What is your problem, man? Delete that recording right now. He lunged forward, trying to snatch the phone right out of my hand. I easily stepped back and slipped it safely into my pocket. Staring him down, I said coldly, I think I fully understand this sick little dynamic between you and your sister now. We are done here. See ya. As I turned my back on him, a wicked smirk crept onto my face. Talk about a stroke of luck just when I needed ammo. This idiot handed me a loaded gun. Someone up there was definitely looking out for me. But let's be real. Ethan's little tantrum on tape was not going to be enough to ruin them. I needed rock-solid evidence to destroy them both. So, I decided to play it cool and keep the peace between the two freaks for now. I would just stay in the shadows, quietly biding my time. But maybe the kid was sweating bullets. Because ever since our little hospital chat, Ethan went right back to desperately clinging to Evelyn. He was hoarding 100% of her time. Around midnight, my phone buzzed with a text from my so-called wife. Caleb, are you still up? I had the next day off, so I was actually wide awake. I shot back a one-word reply, and my phone immediately lit up with an incoming video call from her. Her face popped onto the screen, looking oh so guilty. Hey honey, I am so sorry. Ethan was throwing up and had a terrible stomach bug all day. He has been absolutely miserable. He finally just settled down and fell asleep. I feel awful making you wait up for me. I forced the corners of my mouth up into a practiced smile, though my eyes were dead cold. Hey, it is totally fine. It is getting super late anyway. You should get some rest. You have a long day at work tomorrow. My fake nice husband routine must have really pulled at her heartstrings, because her voice dropped into this sickeningly sweet tone. You know, the other day I walked past this boutique and saw a suit that screamed your name. They only had one left, but I snagged it for you. It should be delivered in a couple of days. Thank you for always being so incredibly understanding. What a joke. I had not been waiting up for her at all, and her pathetic attempt to buy my affection did absolutely nothing for me, because the brutal truth was finally clear. In this woman's twisted heart, Ethan was always going to be number one. If I let myself get played by her cheap little bribes again, the rest of my life would be a miserable loop of waiting around in pain, just waking up angry every single day. Thank God I finally snapped out of my delusion. I still had time to burn this whole thing to the ground. A few days later, I was on shift at the hospital when a sharp pain suddenly shot through my lower right side. At first, it was just a dull ache, but within hours, the agony ramped up to 10. It got so incredibly unbearable that cold sweat drenched my scrubs, and I literally could not stand up straight. Being a doctor, I knew the diagnosis instantly. Acute appendicitis. Seeing me doubled over in absolute agony, my coworker actually took it upon himself to call my wife. Back when Evelyn was still chasing after me, she made sure to swap numbers with everyone in my office, sweet-talking and bribing them on a regular basis. So, the second I collapsed, their first instinct was to reach out and tell Evelyn everything. When she finally rushed through the hospital doors, I was still waiting for my x-ray results. I sat completely alone on a cold bench, hunched over with a deathly pale face, looking absolutely pathetic. Caleb, what did the doctor say? Why on earth didn't you call me when you were feeling this awful? Evelyn hurried over and gently wrapped her arms around me. Her hands felt incredibly warm against my freezing skin. I could feel that comforting heat seeping right through my shirt. Honestly, seeing the genuine panic and concern in her eyes right then, my heart actually melted a little. No amount of sweet talk can ever beat having someone show up when you are at your absolute lowest. Right then, I just desperately needed my family by my side. And to her credit, Evelyn stayed glued to my side the entire time. She ran frantically back and forth to grab my test results, scoured the halls for hot water, and even took off her own coat just to drape it over my trembling shoulders. I took all of it in. But honestly, the blinding pain in my gut didn't leave me with much room to think. A little while later, The doctor handed over the surgical consent form. They needed an immediate signature from a direct family member. Since Evelyn was right there, she grabbed the pen and signed it without a second thought. But, just as they were wheeling me toward the operating room, her phone suddenly started buzzing. Because she was leaning in so close to my stretcher, I could perfectly hear the frantic voice blaring from the speaker. It was Ethan. "Sis, I got burned. It hurts so freaking much. What should I do? I'm so scared." He was absolutely sobbing on the other end of the line. It was physically impossible for me to pretend I didn't hear that whiny voice. My eyebrows instantly shot up in disbelief. Seriously, why did his timing always have to be this flawlessly awful? That guy always managed to pop out of nowhere during my most critical moments just to make my life a living hell. The moment he started turning on the waterworks, I knew Evelyn was going to lose her mind all over again. Sure enough, exactly as I predicted, her entire demeanor shifted, and she completely lost whatever composure she had left. "Ethan, do not panic. I am coming back right away." She hung up, turning to me with a frantic look. "Caleb, can you just head into the operating room by yourself for now? Ethan just burned himself really badly. I have to go back and make sure he is okay." Before she could even finish her pathetic excuse, I weakly cut her off. "Evelyn, I need you here right now. I feel like I am dying. I can call my coworkers to go handle his little burn. They are actual, professional medical staff, for God's sake." As the words left my mouth, my eyes stung with furious tears. In the past, I had always played the tough, independent husband. Evelyn used to constantly praise me for never being a clingy burden. Yeah, she praised me right before casually tossing me aside whenever something better came along. But this time, lying on a hospital bed, I absolutely refused to back down. Yet, without missing a beat, she frowned and shot back. How is that going to work? Ethan will be terrified. I have to be the one to go back. She squeezed my shoulders, offering up a hollow comfort. "Hey, don't worry. The second they wheel you out of that operating room, I will be right here waiting. Just be a good boy." "Go on!" I clutched my screaming abdomen, my face draining of all color. "But Evelyn, I really, truly need you right now." Evelyn stared down at my pain-twisted face, hesitating for a fraction of a second. But then, her eyes turned dead and ice-cold. "Caleb, you are honestly acting so incredibly immature right now. You were never like this before. Since when did you become so utterly suffocating?" I let out a miserable, broken laugh as hot tears finally spilled from the corners of my eyes. "I guess I have always been this immature. But hear me now, if you walk out that door, then we are getting a divorce." She stared at me like I had lost my mind, snapping back with pure venom. "Caleb, my patience has limits. You are being absolutely impossible." And with that, she spun on her heel and marched away. Without even looking back, she shouted furiously, "Fine, divorce it is. But let me tell you, Caleb, if we divorce, do not expect to see a single red cent from me." I slowly turned my head on the pillow, watching her resolute figure fade down the hallway. My face was completely numb, wiped clean of any expression. I raised a violently shaking hand to wipe at my reddened eyes. It genuinely felt like my heart had flatlined right then and there, leaving nothing but an empty, barren graveyard in my chest. Gripping my aching chest with one hand and clutching my torn abdomen with the other, my frail body trembled on the stretcher as I was rolled toward the operating room. Miraculously, the surgery actually went off without a hitch, but the moment the doctor wheeled me out into the recovery hall, my eyes landed on a strikingly familiar face. Grace stepped out of the shadows and gently patted my shoulder. "Hey, do not be afraid. I am right here." Hearing those words, my vision blurred with fresh tears. A massive, indescribable wave of emotion crashed into my chest, but I bit my lip and ruthlessly forced it all down. Truth be told, back when I was a kid, my relationship with Grace was pretty terrible. She was just far too incredibly outstanding, almost like she was operating on a superhuman level. I used to be an only child, but when I turned 8 years old, my parents brought Grace home to take care of her as a favor to an old family friend. At the time, she was already 13 years old, and from the very first day she moved in, my parents constantly compared us, leaving a bitter resentment brewing in my gut. I used to be such a rebel, pushing Grace further and further away, but with our parents gone, Grace was the only real family I had left in this world. Once I finally settled into my hospital bed, she sat close, her eyes full of worry. Does it hurt? Yeah, it hurts. I squeezed my eyes shut, unable to hide the raw pain twisting across my face. The worst is over now, Grace whispered, her voice incredibly tender. Everything is going to get better from here. Will they? I froze, the words catching in my throat. Will things actually get better? A bitter smile crept onto my face. I really hope so. Just like I figured, Evelyn never showed her face again. I had powered down my phone the second they rolled me into the operating room, and I hadn't bothered turning it back on since. Evelyn couldn't reach me, sure, but she didn't exactly tear the city apart looking for me either. She definitely never came to the hospital to stay by my side. Any leftover illusions between us were completely shattered. Honestly, I just didn't care anymore. I spilled my guts to Grace, telling her every dirty detail of what went down between me and Evelyn. Grace was furious, but you'd never know it by looking at her stone-cold face. I just kept talking, pouring out the whole twisted saga between the three of us. I was so wrapped up in my own head, I didn't even notice her knuckles turning white. Do not worry about the divorce. I will handle Evelyn for you. Grace stood by the window, her back to me, her voice terrifyingly calm. She was so composed that I totally missed the blazing inferno of rage burning right beneath the surface. I stared at her back and swallowed hard. Thank you, Grace. Thanks to her, the divorce sailed through without a hitch. Evelyn actually had the nerve to try and visit me, but Grace shut her down every single time. Meanwhile, I marched in and quit my job. I was packing up, ready to ditch this toxic city and follow Grace to the capital for a totally clean slate. The day I finally got a clean bill of health, I invited my old coworkers out for a farewell dinner. But get this, it just so happened to be Evelyn's birthday, and she had booked a private room right in the exact same restaurant. I was just walking past her room when I caught a glimpse of the flashy decorations, and there was Ethan, sitting smugly in his wheelchair. It suddenly hit me like a ton of bricks. Right. Today is her birthday. A bunch of Evelyn's friends were swarming Ethan, sucking up to him and treating him like he was the man of the house. Oh, Ethan, you are just too charming. No wonder Evelyn sprints home the second she gets off work. Seriously, she can barely go 3 sentences without bringing your name up. You really are the one person she holds closest to her heart. I found the whole scene hilarious in a sick way, so I paused right at the doorway. None of these idiots seemed to know that Ethan and Evelyn were brother and sister. They were just hyping them up as a couple. Ethan gave this gross, shy little smile, his cheeks actually turning red. She really is incredibly good to me. Wow. He had zero intention of clearing up the misunderstanding. He was eating up the attention, letting them all think whatever they wanted. I just looked down, a dark, mocking smirk crossing my face. I didn't waste another second on them. I turned around and walked right back to my own party like I hadn't seen a thing. After dinner wrapped up and I finally got home, I realized I'd left my stupid bag sitting in the restaurant room. So, I hauled myself all the way back. By the time I arrived, the place was practically a ghost town. Dead quiet. Walking past Evelyn's room again, I heard whispers. The door was cracked just enough for me to peek through, and man, I wish I hadn't. Ethan was on the sofa, wrapping his arms fiercely around Evelyn, pulling her tight against his chest. I'll never let you go. Not in this lifetime. My eyes practically bulged out of my head. The very next second, the two of them locked lips in a heavy, passionate kiss. It was an absolute gut punch. My brain completely short-circuited. My face contorted in pure disgust. Hands shaking violently, I ripped my phone out of my pocket, hit record, and caught the whole filthy thing on video. By the time I stumbled back through my front door, I was shaking like a leaf. Ice-cold chills ripped through my entire body. Grace stepped out of the study and took one look at my ghost-white face. She broke into a run, dropping to a crouch right beside me. She grabbed my arm. "Caleb, what's wrong? What happened?" Her voice was practically a whisper, terrified she was going to break me. I just buried my head in my hands, curling into a pathetic ball on the couch. My voice was cracking. I just ran into Evelyn and Ethan at the restaurant. Grace's eyebrows snapped together. Did those two team up to harass you again? I just shook my head, totally unable to speak. Instead, I pulled my phone back out and handed her the cursed video I'd just shot. Grace watched it in complete silence. Weirdly enough, the tension drained right out of her shoulders. She gave my arm a gentle pat. Well, they were never biological siblings to begin with. Honestly, a sick twist like this was bound to happen sooner or later. Look, Caleb, if you're pulling the plug on this toxic marriage, you've got to scrub Evelyn from your mind. I knew she was right. But man, I was just boiling with rage. My head was an absolute mess of twisted feelings right then. Sure, the fire I had for Evelyn had died out a long time ago, but catching them in the act, that sick, twisted scene still ripped a massive hole right through my chest. But honestly, the biggest thing I felt was pure, gut-wrenching humiliation. I looked back at the old me and just wanted to punch a wall. How the hell did I let myself be such a pathetic pushover? Getting played like a cheap fiddle by a pair of sick siblings? Unbelievable. Just send me the video, Grace told me. Trust me, this whole nightmare with you two is going to be over real soon. As she said that, Grace reached out, gently running her hand through my hair, dropping her voice into this incredibly soothing tone. Go take a hot shower. Get some sleep. I promise. The sun's going to rise and things will be way better tomorrow. I just nodded like a lost kid. I dragged myself up and started shuffling slowly toward my bedroom. But right as I hit the doorway, something made me stop and turn back around to look at Grace. I swallowed hard, scraping together whatever courage I had left, and muttered, "Hey, about all the crap that went down before, I'm really sorry." Hearing me actually say that, even Grace, who basically wears a permanent poker face, totally froze up for a split second. She let out a soft sigh and whispered, "You silly kid. Why in the world would I hold a grudge against a stubborn brat like you?" I just pressed my lips together in silence. In the end, I couldn't help but let out a small, genuine smile. "Thank you," I said softly. After getting that off my chest, I headed into my bedroom, feeling like a massive weight had just vanished. Grace, though, she just stood right there in the living room for a long time, staring at the empty doorway I had just walked through. The look in her eyes was impossibly deep and unreadable. Meanwhile, the moment Evelyn woke up from her brutal hangover, the sound of people talking outside her door immediately caught her attention. She bolted out of bed in a total panic, completely ignoring her shoes, and sprinted straight out of the room. "Ethan, is Caleb finally back?" In the living room, Ethan was just sitting there in his wheelchair. His fake little smile instantly stiffened up. He forced out two incredibly awkward, dry laughs and said, No, sis, it's Grace. She said she has something really important to hash out with you." The second Evelyn laid eyes on Grace, her eyebrows crashed together in pure annoyance. Her whole vibe was instantly toxic. She crossed her arms and snapped coldly, "Listen here, I am never agreeing to a divorce. You tell Caleb that if he wants to end things, he needs to grow a spine and tell me to my face." Grace just let out this icy, mocking snort. "Oh, please. Do you honestly believe you still have the upper hand here? The very fact that Caleb hasn't completely destroyed you in court is him showing you a hell of a lot of mercy." Seeing the tension spike, Ethan looked over at Grace, his eyes acting all red and pathetic. "Grace, please. This is entirely my fault. I never should have let my emotions take over and blab to him about what went down between my sister and me. Look, blood relations or not, at the end of the day, we are always going to be brother and sister. Can you please just smooth things over and explain that to Caleb for us? My sister seriously loves him." Grace didn't even flinch. She stayed totally stone-faced. She just stared dead straight at the sniveling guy in the wheelchair and asked, "So, let me get this straight. You sincerely hope Evelyn and Caleb can just kiss and make up, continuing as husband and wife, right?" Ethan totally froze up. You could see the gears turning before he gritted his teeth and lied. "Yeah, of course. I just don't want my sister to end up miserable. She genuinely cares about Caleb." Grace calmly stood up, brushing herself off, and said, "All right then. If that is really what you want, I'll head back and do my absolute best to talk some sense into Caleb. I'll ask him to give Evelyn one more chance." As she dropped that bomb, she casually turned around to head out the door. Right on cue, Ethan's panicked voice rang out from behind her. "Wait, Grace, hang on a second." Grace smirked to herself. She had fully expected him to crack. She let out a disdainful little sneer. But by the time she spun back around to face him, her eyes were completely empty and cold. "Is there something else?" Ethan looked like he was tearing himself apart inside. He was gripping his phone so ridiculously tight that it looked like he was about to snap the screen right in half. "Look, If Caleb really doesn't want to come back, Grace, please do not force his hand. I've been thinking about this really carefully. Honestly, my sister and I just can't be that selfish. We have absolutely no right to force Caleb into a corner and make him do something he hates. But before he could even finish his fake little speech, Evelyn exploded. No way. I am not letting him go. I can fix this. I swear I will spend the rest of my damn life making it up to Caleb. Ethan snapped his head toward Evelyn in sheer disbelief, his twisted little heart dropping into his stomach like a lead weight. Was this a joke? Had his precious sister actually gone and fallen head over heels for Caleb? There was no freaking way that was possible. Grace just gave Evelyn this absolutely brutal, icy glare. You literally say that every single time. Haven't you stabbed Caleb in the back enough? Your promises are complete garbage at this point. That verbal slap to the face left Evelyn completely and utterly speechless. She just stood there, her mouth hanging open. Because, let's be real, hit it a lever. A lever at a lowest to lowest, she completely abandoned him at the hospital. She never even bothered to check up on him or make sure he was okay. Back then, she had arrogantly assumed Caleb was just waving the divorce word around to scare her into submission. She thought he was just being needy and begging for attention. She figured that once the dust settled, she could just buy him some expensive watch, whisper a few sweet nothings into his ear, and wrap him right back around her finger like usual. But the one wild card she never saw coming was the explosive truth dropping. She and her dear brother Ethan didn't share a single drop of the same blood. And somehow, against all odds, Caleb had managed to dig up that filthy little secret before she even had a clue about it. When Grace had slammed play on Ethan's sick audio recording the other day, Evelyn was rocked to her absolute core. Finding out she was just some adopted outsider, not even her parents' real flesh and blood, totally shattered her reality. Ever since that nightmare of a revelation, she had been desperately blowing up Caleb's phone, but he had completely ghosted her. He was gone without a trace. The cold reality of it sent a massive wave of panic rushing through Evelyn's veins. She could literally feel Caleb slipping through her fingers like sand. But after everything, how the hell was she supposed to just let go of him? The living room sank into a suffocating dead silence. Ethan awkwardly shifted his gaze from the stone-cold Grace right back to a panicked Evelyn. After agonizing over it for what felt like forever, he finally bit the bullet and said, "Look, sis, since Caleb is dead set on dumping you and walking away, why don't you just sign the damn divorce papers right now? If you seriously can't stand to let him go, you can always try to win him back later. I've got your back on this. No freaking way," Evelyn hissed, her eyes bulging with bloodshot rage. She shot a venomous glare at Ethan before turning her furious red eyes on Grace. "I am not agreeing to this divorce. Absolutely no way in hell." But honestly, before Evelyn could even wrap up her unhinged little speech, she completely froze. Grace casually whipped out her phone and hit play on a very spicy video, starring none other than Evelyn and her fake brother, Ethan. Evelyn was utterly paralyzed. She stared at Ethan in absolute, pure disbelief. How the hell could this even happen? Ethan just threw his hands up, playing the innocent victim. "Sis, you drank way too much last night. You probably just mistook me for Caleb." As he spoke, Ethan dramatically covered his face, acting as if he was just too traumatized to go on. Evelyn scrambled for an excuse, panicking. "I was blackout drunk. I literally had zero idea what was going on." But Grace was way too exhausted to sit there and watch these two fake siblings put on their pathetic little soap opera. She crossed her arms and said ice cold, "I am giving you exactly 3 days. If I do not have those signed divorce papers by then, I am dragging your ass to court. And I'm just guessing here, but you probably don't want everyone at your corporate office to see this dirty little secret, right?" Evelyn stared deep into Grace's unforgiving eyes, her pupils shrinking in sheer terror. She had busted her hump to climb the corporate ladder and get to where she was. There was absolutely no way she could survive a massive scandal like this. Defeated, Evelyn practically melted into the sofa, looking totally drained, like a woman who had just lost everything. It was completely over. This time, there were no second chances. Fast forward to the morning they left. The sky was heavy and gloomy, perfectly matching the absolute weight on Caleb's battered heart. When Grace finally handed him that precious divorce certificate, he snatched it up and hugged it tight against his chest like a lifeline. A tsunami of raw, unspoken emotion practically poured out of him. With a cracked voice, he whispered, "Grace, thank you. Seriously, Thank you for everything." Seeing our guy fighting back a total breakdown, Grace couldn't help but reach out, wrapping him in a fierce, protective hug. "It's all over now, Caleb. Starting today, you get a brand new life." Caleb was entirely speechless, choking on his tears, so he just kept nodding his head. Soon, their plane was speeding down the runway, and Caleb stared out the window. Right on cue, the sun began smashing through those heavy, dark clouds, flooding the cabin with this ridiculously brilliant, hopeful light. A small, genuine smile finally crept onto his face as he murmured to himself, "Yeah, it really is over. The worst of the storm has finally passed." Meanwhile, back in Toxic Town, Evelyn was taking a call from a friend when she suddenly leaped out of her chair like it was on fire. "Wait, what? Say that to me again." Her friend let out a heavy sigh over the phone and dropped the bomb. "Look, word on the street is Caleb is leaving Brighton for good, and he is never coming back. That is impossible. Where the hell would he even go?" Then it hit her like a ton of bricks. Grace. It had to be Grace. That meddling sister must have packed Caleb up and taken him away. But wait a minute, hadn't those two siblings supposedly hated each other for years? Furious, Evelyn slammed her palm down hard on her desk, the explosive smack echoing through the room. "Oh, Caleb, you sweet, naive idiot. Do you really think running away means you can escape me? Keep dreaming, babe. I am absolutely going to drag you back." Spitting those words, she aggressively snatched up her coat and bolted out the door. After violently interrogating every mutual contact she had, Evelyn finally tracked down Grace's apartment in Brighton, but by the time she hammered on the front door, a random neighbor popped out to tell her that the sibling duo next door had already skipped town that very morning. Caleb was actually gone. Like, gone. Utterly crushed, Evelyn collapsed right there on the filthy doorstep of Grace's empty apartment. Her eyes were completely glazed over, staring into the absolute void, as she muttered, "Caleb, how could you be so damn cruel? Could you really just abandon me like a piece of trash and hide away forever, never wanting to look at my face again? Caleb, I already miss you so much." Cut to day 2 of their fresh start in the capital city, and Grace is already dragging Caleb down to a super exclusive private hospital for his very first day of work. Sitting shotgun in the car, Caleb stared at Grace's annoyingly calm face, completely blown away. "Hold up. Exactly when did you manage to set up a whole new job for me?" "Oh, right around the exact second you called me crying about wanting a divorce." Grace didn't miss a beat, turning her head to shoot him a knowing side-eye. Taking in his completely shell-shocked expression, a warm, totally unscripted smile tugged at the corners of her mouth. For a solid minute, Caleb was totally at a loss for words. His sister had practically moved mountains for him during the absolute darkest chapter of his life. Maybe to Grace, bailing out her little brother was just part of the basic sibling job description. But for Caleb, it sparked a deep, forgotten warmth in his chest, the undeniable, unconditional feeling of real family. Suddenly, he felt her warm hand reach over and playfully ruffle his hair. "All right, buddy, don't bust a brain cell overthinking it. Just go in there and absolutely crush this new gig." Caleb grinned back, totally fired up. "Don't sweat it, sis. I promise I won't make you look bad." Not shockingly at all, Caleb's fresh start was right in his old wheelhouse. It was pretty obvious that Grace had pulled some massive strings to set this up on purpose. She'd managed to slide him into a ridiculously chill VIP recovery wing. We're talking super low stress, and barely any patients on the floor. His daily grind was basically a cakewalk compared to his old life, and best of all, 0 graveyard shifts. Caleb was honestly living the dream right now. Since he was still hunting for his own bachelor pad, he was happily crashing on Grace's couch for the time being. But later that day, he walked through the front door after his shift, only to lock eyes with a totally random, unfamiliar dude standing right in the middle of their living room. Their eyes snapped together, and both guys instantly froze like deer in the headlights. The mystery man was dressed to absolutely kill. We're talking slicked back hair without a single strand out of place, rocking a razor-sharp suit and gold-rimmed glasses. Caleb blinked, immediately going on the defensive. Who the hell are you?" Caleb narrowed his eyes, his mind racing. Was this guy Grace's boyfriend? How else could he just waltz in and out of her place like he owned it? But the stranger just flashed a bright, easy smile. "Hey there. I'm Miss Winter's personal assistant, Daniel Hart. Let me guess. Are you her boyfriend? Caleb didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Talk about an awkward mix-up, they had totally just pegged each other as Grace's secret lover. He opened his mouth to clear the air, but a cool, steady voice cut through the room from right behind him. He is my boyfriend. Caleb froze in his tracks. Wait, what the heck was going on? He whipped his head around, only to see Grace strolling in looking completely unfazed. Without missing a beat, she casually slipped her arm through his. You head inside first, she murmured. Caleb was drowning in confusion, but he played along and gave a small nod. He slipped back into his own room and threw on some comfortable loungewear. Not long after, a soft knock echoed through the door. Grace, come on in. He leaned back, looking completely at ease, but Grace stayed planted in the hallway. Hovering right at the doorway, she dropped the bomb. Nobody at the company knows who you are, so for now, I need you to do me a massive favor and pretend to be my boyfriend. Caleb blinked at her, processing the crazy request. Isn't that crossing a line? If I take up that spot, aren't I going to ruin your chances of finding a real guy? He had known Grace for years, after all, and in all that time, she had always been single. Caleb had literally never seen her with anyone. Were her standards just sky high, or was there some hidden trauma? That kind of stuff is all up to fate anyway. It doesn't matter, she said flatly. With those cryptic words, Grace turned on her heel and walked away, leaving him completely in the dark. Caleb stood there chewing on the idea before letting out a helpless chuckle. Shaking his head, he decided to just roll with it. Bright and early the next morning, Caleb stepped out of his room and found Grace already waiting in the living room. She was sharply dressed, radiating pure boss energy, and ready to hit the road. Morning, Grace. Caleb gave her a warm smile. Grace stood up instantly. Let's go. I'm driving you to work. Oh, no need. I can just hop on the subway. Caleb waved his hands frantically, hating the idea of being a burden, but Grace simply reached out and locked her grip onto his forearm. Let's go. We're running late. And just like that, Caleb found himself strapped into the passenger seat of Grace's sleek ride. Halfway there, Caleb's phone buzzed violently. He glanced down at the screen, and his relaxed expression instantly darkened into a hard frown. He killed the screen and tossed the phone aside in disgust. Even though he had changed his number and wiped his social media when he moved to the capital, Evelyn was still hunting him down. That obsessive woman had actually stalked her way through his old coworkers and friends, turning over every single rock until she finally dug up his new info. Now, she was blowing up his phone every single day. Caleb absolutely refused to entertain her toxic harassment, ignoring every text. Today was no exception. Noticing the shift in his vibe, Grace shot a sideways glance at him. Out of nowhere, she asked, "Why aren't you answering? Just spam." Not worth my time, Caleb muttered, staring blankly out the window. His perfectly good morning was officially ruined. Grace's tone shifted, turning dead serious. If something is going on, you tell me. Don't carry that weight all by yourself. Caleb nodded, a soft, grateful smile returning to his face. I know. Soon, Grace pulled right up to the hospital entrance. She waited until he was safely through the sliding glass doors before speeding off. The second she was on the road, she hit her assistant's speed dial. Call Evelyn. Give her a very clear warning. Grace's eyes were like daggers of ice, her stunning face locked into an absolutely ruthless, zero-tolerance glare. On it, Miss Winters. But her assistant didn't click off right away. He awkwardly cleared his throat, hesitating. Grace arched a sharp eyebrow. Spit it out. What else? Well, Miss Winters, Daniel mentioned you finally got a boyfriend. Massive congratulations. The assistant blurted out with a nervous, giddy laugh. Grace's fingers tapped a lazy rhythm against the leather steering wheel, her tense shoulders dropping. Thank you. Her assistant nearly dropped his phone in sheer shock. She didn't deny it or chew him out. Holy crap, had the legendary 1,000-year-old Ice Queen finally melted for a guy? Meanwhile, back at the hospital, Caleb was facing a truly bizarre case. The patient was a guy, maybe 26 or 27 years old. Not only was he completely mute, but his arms and legs were totally withered and weak. He was dumped in the rehab department for a miracle recovery. Caleb had seen plenty of burnout cases like this before. Usually, guys like this just crashed hard from toxic workloads, zero sleep, and surviving on garbage food. So, Caleb dove right into his usual, expert routine, running a thorough check on the poor guy. but there was something off. The patient kept locking his intense, striking eyes onto Caleb, practically begging for him to notice something. At first, Caleb completely missed the cues. It wasn't until he was deep massaging the guy's lifeless arm that he finally caught that desperate, piercing stare. Sensing the urgency, Caleb whipped out a pen and scribbled a quick note. "Are you in pain right now? If yes, blink once." He held the paper right up to the man's face. Without a single second of hesitation, the patient blinked back hard. Without wasting a single second, Caleb rushed over and gave his bedridden patient a careful full-body checkup. And guess what he found? Tucked right under the poor guy's back was a rogue plastic bottle cap digging painfully into his skin. To make it even more comical, the cap had the words "try again" printed right on it. Clearly, his careless family had just left their trash behind. Letting out a heavy sigh, Caleb helplessly tossed the offending cap onto the bedside table. Grabbing his pen and paper, he double-checked if the poor guy was hurting anywhere else. Seeing the sheer relief wash over the patient's eyes, Caleb finally flashed him a warm smile. But right on cue, the phone in his pocket started buzzing. He pulled it out, frowning at the local number flashing on the screen. So, making sure his patient was safely tucked in, he did one last quick check for any issues, then stepped out into the hallway to answer the call. "Caleb, it's me, Evelyn. I actually came to the capital. Can we please meet?" Caleb's brow furrowed in pure disbelief. He never expected his ex-wife to track him down all the way to the capital like some kind of lingering ghost. A massive wave of irritation boiled up inside his chest. "No need," he shot back, shutting her down instantly. "I am pretty sure everything between us is completely over and done with. We have zero reason to see each other." "No, Caleb, I owe you way too much," she pleaded. "If I could, I would willingly lay down my life for you," Evelyn cried out with heavy emotion. Oh, here we go again. Caleb knew this routine all too well. Evelyn had always been a master at spinning these touching, sugar-coated lies. Back when he was hopelessly in love with her, he used to eat those words right up. But now they just made him feel completely disgusted and annoyed. Letting out a sharp, cold laugh, he mocked, "I definitely couldn't afford to take your precious life. I mean, if you were gone, who would baby your dear brother Ethan? Save the drama. You couldn't even fool a 3-year-old with that garbage." Without waiting for a reply, Caleb slammed the end button. He leaned against the wall, clutching his chest as he took deep breaths to finally calm his racing heart. He was absolutely furious, his blood practically boiling over. Lately, whenever the trauma of his past bubbled up, he found himself constantly wondering how the hell he had lost his mind and fallen for a woman like Evelyn. Was it because she was just a god-tier sweet-talker, or because she knew exactly how to play into everything he ever wanted? Or maybe he had just been a sucker, moved by her supposedly sincere devotion to her brother. Whatever the reason, it was all just a beautiful illusion waiting to burst. Some people are just natural-born actors. Before you tie the knot, they only show you their absolute best side. But the second you actually start living with them, the masks slip off, and they don't even bother pretending anymore. Shaking off the toxic memories, Caleb pulled himself together, walked back into the ward, and got right back to checking on his patient. The guy had his eyes shut tight at first, but the moment Caleb resumed the exam, the patient's eyes fluttered open to stare right at him. Only this time around, the silent man didn't seem like he was trying to communicate any new pain or discomfort. He just stared at Caleb with total, unblinking calmness. Caleb definitely felt the intense gaze, but he brushed it off without a second thought. After all, being stuck in that bed all day had to be mind-numbingly boring. Now that a real, living person was actually in front of him, staring was just par for the course. Fast forward to that afternoon, right as Caleb finally clocked out of his shift. He had barely stepped out of the hospital entrance when he spotted a ghost from his past. There she was, clutching a massive bouquet of red roses, flashing a painfully bright smile straight at him. Caleb's reaction, however, was the exact, ice-cold opposite. Without a word, he spun on his heel and walked the other way, refusing to give her the time of day. Panic flashed in Evelyn's eyes as she frantically jogged after him. "Caleb, are you seriously still mad at me?" she called out. Caleb just sneered. "We are already divorced. There is absolutely nothing left between us. So do me a favor and stop harassing me. I am afraid I just can't do that," she fired back. Evelyn reached out, gripping his arm with a deadly serious look. I have already transferred my job to the Capital Branch. Caleb, I want to chase after you all over again. Just please, give me one more chance. Caleb violently shook her hand off his sleeve. Impossible. Evelyn, I gave you plenty of chances, and you were the one who treated every single one like a total joke. My advice? Pack your bags and go home. Otherwise, if precious little Ethan trips and scrapes his knee, your heart is just going to shatter all over again. But Evelyn stubbornly refused to take the hint. She desperately grabbed his arm again, her grip surprisingly tight, terrified he was going to bolt. Caleb, I was wrong. I finally realized just how badly I messed up. From now on, I swear I will keep my distance from Ethan. I will do exactly what I promise, Evelyn vowed, sounding entirely desperate. Caleb just glared at her with absolute zero empathy. What you do has literally nothing to do with me anymore. Listen up, Evelyn. I am only saying this one last time. We are completely done, so stop stalking me, or so help me, I am calling the cops. But Evelyn just dug her heels in. Fine, call the cops. If it means you will actually talk to me for a few more minutes, I will gladly sit in a police station. Caleb was honestly about to pop a blood vessel from the sheer audacity of the woman standing in front of him. When did Evelyn become so incredibly unhinged? The sight of her was making him physically sick. Let go of me, Caleb demanded, his voice dangerously sharp. As they fiercely pushed and shoved, he smacked the massive bouquet right out of Evelyn's hands, sending crushed red petals scattering all over the concrete. Evelyn did not care how desperate she looked as she threw her arms around him, holding on for dear life. Inhaling his scent like a total creep, she begged, Caleb, please, just forgive me, okay? I seriously cannot live without you. Let go of me right now. Caleb struggled with everything he had to push her away, but then, like absolute magic, the crazy X was ripped right off him. Before he could even process what just happened, a super familiar silhouette stepped right in front of him. Tall, slender, and radiating pure, badass energy, she completely shielded him from the madness. Her voice dropped to a freezing chill as she warned, I have already called the cops. If you walk away right this second, you might just beat them here. Otherwise, I would absolutely love to escort you to the station myself. Grace had shoved Evelyn aside with brutal force, sending her stumbling hard into the dirt. Sitting there on the ground, the once proud woman looked like a total, pathetic mess. Her expensive dark dress was ruined with dust. Slapping the dirt off her knees, she shot Grace a look of pure, unadulterated venom. What the hell does my chasing Caleb have to do with you? If you think you are so tough, try guarding him 24/7, because I am never giving up on getting my man back. I will wear him down sooner or later. Keep dreaming, you psycho, Caleb snapped, glaring right back at her. I seriously must have been blind to ever fall for trash like you. I am absolutely sickened. Evelyn gasped, her eyes practically popping out of her head. Are you calling my deep, passionate love for you sickening? Do not even try to use the words deep love. You do not deserve to even speak them. Without missing a beat, Grace pulled out her phone and punched in a number. A few rings later, Ethan's voice echoed through the speaker. Hello, he asked. Hello, Mr. Hayes. Your lovely sister is currently out here harassing her ex-husband. It really looks like you completely failed to put her on a leash, Grace stated, her tone dropping degrees. Caleb stood there, completely dumbfounded. Why on earth was his sister talking down to the arrogant Ethan Hayes like she owned him? Over the line, Ethan sounded practically panicked. I am so sorry, Grace. This is totally my fault. I will lock her down, I swear. Please, just give me one more chance, okay? The second Evelyn heard her brother begging, sheer panic washed over her face. Ethan, what the hell are you talking about? What kind of shady deal did you make with this woman? Ethan sounded incredibly weak and pathetic as he replied, Can you just come home first? Just come back, and I will explain everything to you. Meanwhile, Caleb was staring at Grace like she had suddenly sprouted a second head. She had told him earlier that he did not need to stress about a single thing, promising she had it all covered. So Caleb had actually stepped back and let his big sister take the wheel, and man, she was terrifyingly efficient at it. She locked down his divorce papers in record time. But looking at this insane situation now, she must have played a massive, hidden card. Otherwise, there was no way this nightmare would have ended so smoothly. Before long, Grace marched Caleb safely away from the madness. The second they slid into the car, Caleb opened his mouth to demand answers, but she suddenly grabbed his arm. "Did that psycho pinch you here?" Grace frowned deeply, her voice dripping with fierce, protective concern. Caleb glanced down and finally noticed a dark, nasty red mark bruising his forearm. It was pretty glaring. His face immediately shifted into an awkward cringe, his brows pulling together tightly, but he kept his mouth shut. Grace gently let go of him, her face turning back into a block of pure ice as she fired up the engine. The car blasted forward like a rocket, aggressively tearing into the flow of city traffic. Caleb cautiously turned his head to peek at his sister. Even though she looked totally stoic, the absolute freezing aura radiating off her was suffocating. She was practically, thinking back, ever since he first met Grace when he was 8 years old, no matter how pissed off or furious she got, she had never, ever exploded in front of him. Her voice was always so incredibly steady and warm. Whenever she looked at him, her eyes held this intense sincerity, and she never once broke a promise. It turned out he had this absolute powerhouse of a sister guarding his back all along. He had just been way too rebellious. Growing up, he fought her on literally everything, blinding him to how much she actually cared. The slick ride smoothly glided to a halt inside the dark garage. Caleb popped his seatbelt and was halfway out the door, when Grace suddenly called his name. "Yeah? What is up?" Grace studied his face for a tense moment before dropping a bomb. "If Evelyn totally cut ties with her toxic brother, would you ever actually remarry her?" Caleb stared at her, utterly floored. After a beat, he quietly asked, "Grace, why the hell are you asking me that out of nowhere?" "Because I need to know." Grace's eyes were deadly serious, piercing right through him. "I need to know if you are still carrying a torch for that woman." Caleb dropped his gaze, a slight tremor in his lashes betraying his history. For a split second, the car went dead silent. It was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. Finally, after a heavy pause, Caleb breathed out his answer. "I stopped being in love with her a very, very long time ago." A faint, knowing smile brushed across Grace's lips. "Is that right?" "Honestly, that whole marriage was a complete joke to me. From day one to the bitter end, I was nothing more than a glorified nursemaid for the Hayes family. It sounded real pretty when people called me the successful man behind Evelyn's throne. But let us be real. The only reason she ever picked me was for my medical degree and because I could keep her sick brother breathing." As Caleb let it all out, he took a deep, heavy breath. Caleb exhaled a long, shaky breath, desperately hoping the heavy knot twisting in his chest would finally start to loosen. He lifted his gaze, meeting Grace's eyes with cold clarity. "Besides, the sick dynamic between those two siblings is just completely twisted and disgusting. I honestly don't want to waste another breath talking about them." Grace nodded in silent, solid agreement. Her voice dropped to a slow, soothing cadence. "In that case, you need to wipe her from your mind. Go home and actually get a decent night's sleep. Tomorrow, I'll call the hospital and get you a day off. Just rest at home." Caleb immediately shook his head, brushing it off. "No need, seriously. I'm totally fine." But the words died in his throat as a warm hand suddenly pressed against his face. He whipped his head around, locking onto Grace's deep, unreadable eyes. Right then and there, she was softly, tenderly brushing her thumb across his cheek. A sudden, violent jolt spiked right through Caleb's chest. He couldn't even explain it. But in that split second, a wave of pure, unfiltered panic and nerves washed over him. Maybe it was the fact that Grace's face was dangerously close to his own, or maybe the tight, enclosed space of the car was finally getting to him. Or worse, maybe it was just because her touch was way too gentle for him to process. For a dizzying moment, our normally composed protagonist was left entirely speechless, completely at a loss for words. Almost as quickly as it happened, Grace pulled her hand back and gave him a soft look. "All right," she murmured. "Let's just go home." Caleb gave a stiff, robotic nod, but that frantic buzzing in his chest refused to fade. Long after they got back to the house, Caleb found himself staring at the ceiling from his bed, his mind completely spiraling out of control. What the hell had just happened to him in that car? He didn't dare make a peep, yet his brain wouldn't stop replaying the moment on a relentless loop. Eventually, the restless energy became way too much to handle. so he fired up a video call with his best buddy, Ryan. The absolute second the connection went through, eagle-eyed Ryan squinted right into the camera and called him out. Whoa, dude. That look on your face is completely off. Is the new gig already crashing and burning? Do you need me to book a flight and keep you sane? Caleb forced a tired, grateful smile. No, man. It's really nothing. Evelyn actually showed up to drag me into her drama again, but I've already shut it down. Ryan immediately arched a suspicious eyebrow. Wait, she seriously stalked you all the way out to the capital city? Wasn't she always weirdly attached at the hip to her precious brother? Now that your divorce is finalized, she should be off living her happily ever after with him. Why the hell is she still blowing up your life? Evelyn actually had the nerve to tell Grace she was clueless about her own family background. She claims Ethan and her parents kept her in the dark the entire time. Caleb's voice was dead flat, completely stripped of any warmth. He was just spitting the cold, hard facts. Ryan's brow furrowed in instant worry. Okay, but so what? Listen to me right now, Caleb. You finally clawed your way out of that toxic dumpster fire. Do not even think about getting soft and diving right back into the flames. If you let her drag you down again, you're going to lose all respect. Caleb let out a faint, cynical chuckle. I know, man. I'm done being an idiot. I am more than satisfied with where my life is at right now. But right as he said it, he hesitated for just a fraction of a second. Ryan, sharp as ever, instantly picked up on the weird vibe and demanded to know, all right, what's really going on here? Did you finally stumble into some crazy new romance? Spill the details, right now. Caleb sat there, completely torn between laughing out loud and bursting into tears. No, you idiot. I literally just got to the capital. Ryan wasn't buying it. Bull, your whole expression is completely giving you away. You are so clearly obsessing over something right now. Honestly, Ryan's detective skills were practically on par with Sherlock Holmes. Caleb instantly clamped his mouth shut. He took a painfully long moment to sort through the chaos in his head before finally whispering, Ryan, technically, there isn't a single drop of shared blood between Grace and me, either. How do you think we should? Ryan cut him off, shrieking. Wait, you've actually fallen for your own sister. Ryan's eyes bugged out of his skull in pure shock. No, absolutely freaking not. Caleb immediately scrambled to backtrack. I just meant I think we need to establish some boundaries and keep our distance. Think about it. If we don't, aren't we basically turning into the exact same kind of twisted weirdos as Evelyn and Ethan? That's exactly why I'm seriously debating if I should just pack up and move out. Ryan chewed on that for a solid moment before shaking his head. Bro, you two are completely different. I clearly remember you telling me that Grace didn't even join your family until you were already 8 years old. You guys knew right from the jump that you weren't biologically related. Plus, your dynamic used to be absolutely terrible. Weren't you two basically sworn enemies growing up? Caleb let out a dry, hollow laugh. Honestly, calling us enemies isn't even the slightest bit of an exaggeration. Then what the heck are you sweating about? Ryan's lips suddenly curled into a sly, smirking grin. Oh, wait, could it be that your gorgeous stepsister has been treating you a little too sweet lately, and your cold heart is finally starting to flutter? Oh, get the hell out of here, Caleb groaned, rolling his eyes so hard at the camera it actually hurt. At first, Ryan was just throwing out a classic bro joke, but in the very next second, that heavy, troubled shadow crept right back onto Caleb's face. Look, man, honestly, Grace has always been hyper-aware of keeping a massive wall between us. But today she suddenly got way, way too close to me. In that exact moment, my head and my heart just felt completely scrambled. Seeing his distress, Ryan dropped the goofy act entirely and leaned in with serious concern. Well, look at the facts. You guys have always known you aren't blood relatives. Honestly, with everything you've been through lately, it's completely normal for you to be wildly overthinking this. But at the end of the day, the only thing that actually matters here is figuring out what kind of real, genuine feelings you two have for each other. Caleb groaned, dragging a heavy, exhausted hand down his face. Man, I suddenly feel like I don't even know who I am or what I want anymore. Ryan, I'm honestly terrified. I'm just losing my mind and imagining the whole thing. Ryan shot back with a cryptic, knowing look. Not necessarily, bro. Just keep your cool for now. Sit tight, and let's see how this crazy plot actually unfolds. Bright and early the very next morning, Grace tried to insist on chauffeuring Caleb to the office again, but this time, he completely shut the idea down. Grace, seriously, taking the subway is way more convenient for me anyway. You driving me all the way across town is just a massive waste of your time. Seeing Caleb dead set on heading to work alone, Grace didn't push it. But right as he turned to leave, she handed him a fresh breakfast straight from her car. Caleb took the food, that familiar, fluttery feeling creeping back into his chest. She was seriously being way too sweet to him. Was he just totally overthinking this? Shaking his head, he quickly shoved those messy, confusing thoughts right out of his mind. Still, his steps were a little wobbly as he walked away. Watching him get all flustered, Grace couldn't stop a tiny smirk from tugging at her lips. "Caleb," she called out suddenly. He froze in his tracks, spinning around with a totally confused look on his face. "Come with me to a party this Friday night. Clear your schedule," she told him with total Ice Queen coolness. Stunned for a second, Caleb mumbled, "I'll think about it." Then, he practically bolted, not daring to look back. Thanks to Grace's brutal warning the other day, Evelyn didn't dare show her face at Caleb's hospital again. But that didn't stop the crazy ex from spamming him with harassing texts. Even though Caleb blocked every single number she used, this girl just would not quit. It was driving him absolutely insane. Honestly, he was 5 seconds away from trashing his phone and getting a new number. Fast forward to Friday afternoon. Caleb's young VIP patient, Liam, finally got his voice back and was already zooming around in a wheelchair like a boss on a mission. Seriously, the second this guy felt even slightly better, he was constantly heading out on business. He even dragged Caleb along as his personal medical backup, just in case things went south. At 4 o'clock sharp, our exhausted doc was chilling in an office lounge, waiting for Liam to wrap up so they could head back to the hospital. Out of nowhere, his phone buzzed. It was Grace. "I'm picking you up after work," she said breezily, sounding like she was in a weirdly fantastic mood. Caleb checked the clock and sighed. I honestly don't know when I'm getting off today. Why don't," but before he could even finish his sentence, she cut him right off. "Then I'll just wait until you're done." Caleb was completely speechless, his mouth hanging open. Right then, Liam rolled in and asked, "Hey, Dr. Cole, are you free tonight? Let me treat you to dinner." Panicking, Caleb quickly mumbled an okay to Grace and hung up the phone. Turning back to his patient, he smiled apologetically. "Sorry, man, I've already got plans. You all done with your meetings? Once I get you back to your room, I'm clocking out." Liam looked pretty bummed, but thankfully he didn't push it. Playing it totally cool, he just smiled and said, "All right, let's grab a bite some other time." Caleb gave him a polite nod, figuring the rich kid was just being nice, and brushed the whole thing off. But by the time he finally dropped Liam off and officially clocked out, guess who was already parked right outside the hospital? Yup, Grace. And wow, she went all out. Rocking a custom-tailored, gorgeous long dress, she looked insanely stunning like a dangerously beautiful ice queen. Her flawlessly striking face completely took his breath away. Suddenly feeling super self-conscious, Caleb looked down at his wrinkly everyday work clothes. He rubbed his neck awkwardly. Should I run back in and change?" Grace just gave him that faint smile. "Don't worry, I brought you something." Reaching into the car, she casually pulled out a massive shopping bag stamped with a crazy expensive designer logo. Caleb's jaw practically hit the floor. He stared at her, totally stunned, because he had been secretly drooling over this exact suit for months. He just couldn't justify dropping that kind of cash when his closet was already packed, so he never bought it. Now, this mega-rich beauty had just bought it for him without batting an eye. He hesitated, feeling a bit awkward. "Wait, are you expecting me to transfer you the cash for this?" Grace actually let out a rare, teasing chuckle. Caleb pressed his lips into a tight line. "You read my mind perfectly," she joked gently. "Now hop in and change." With the press of a button, she raised the soundproof partition in the car. Combined with the pitch-black tinted windows, it gave our underdog doc a perfectly private little changing room. A few minutes later, Caleb stepped out looking like $1,000,000, and for a split second, even the unshakable Grace totally froze. A spark of pure amazement flashed in her eyes before she quickly masked it with a cool smile. "Ready to go?" Caleb swallowed hard, his heart hammering in his chest. He wasn't crazy just now. Her gaze had looked insanely, dangerously possessive. He saw it plain as day, but still, this guy's self-esteem was so low he didn't dare let himself believe it. I mean, come on. He knew where he stood in the world. Why on earth would a goddess like Grace ever fall for a total nobody like him? A guy carrying the heavy baggage of a messy divorce? Yeah, right. Fairy tales are total garbage in the real world. They soon pulled up to a ridiculously fancy restaurant. After tossing the keys to the valet, Grace suddenly held her hand out to Caleb. He just stood there like a deer in headlights, staring at her, completely clueless. "You're supposed to be my boyfriend tonight," she whispered, reminding him of their deal. Blushing like crazy, he awkwardly reached out and gently wrapped his fingers around her delicate, soft hand. Her touch was surprisingly warm, instantly melting away the icy nerves in his hands, as our underdog hero let this powerhouse woman lead him inside. They didn't stop until they finally reached the quiet sanctuary of a private VIP room. The entire walk there, Caleb's mind had been racing a mile a minute, desperately trying to figure out what exactly Grace meant. Telling her coworkers that he was her boyfriend was one thing. After all, it was an easy way to block out unwanted creeps and office gossip. But why hide the truth from her inner circle, too? What was the point? Do your friends not know I'm your little brother? Either? Caleb couldn't help but ask. Grace just flashed a mysterious smile. Aren't we both only children? Adopted siblings don't count. Leaving Caleb completely stunned, she pulled him right into the room. "Oh, Grace, you finally made it." A slightly plump woman greeted them with a warm smile. "So, this must be the boyfriend. He's gorgeous." "Not bad at all. You've got great taste." Grace calmly raised a hand, making the introduction. "My boyfriend, Caleb Cole." "Oh, hey there, nice to meet you." The whole room turned to Caleb with warm, welcoming eyes. One guy even shouted out, "The man who actually managed to tame Grace, our warrior queen, has finally shown his face. Come on, give it up for him." Caleb tried his absolute best to keep his cool, but hiding his shock was practically impossible. Inside, his heart was a chaotic storm of crashing waves and lightning. He was reeling from the impact. But right then, a nasty, grating voice cut through the cheers. "Hey, isn't that Evelyn Hayes' husband?" The room instantly dropped into a dead silence. The guy who spoke was a tall, scrawny man with sharp cheekbones. His eyes had a vicious glare, screaming that he was bad news. "Jason, what the hell are you talking about? You definitely mistook him for someone else, right?" A guy next to him joked nervously. Jason just narrowed his eyes, sizing Caleb up like prey, before yanking his phone from his pocket. "See for yourselves if it's him or not." There on the screen was a photo of Caleb having dinner with a woman, the two of them deep in conversation. That woman was his ex-wife, Evelyn. Caleb's face instantly went grim, a heavy knot twisting in his stomach. It wasn't because he was afraid of public humiliation, but because he was terrified of dragging Grace down and making her lose face. He never felt that being a divorced man made him worthless, but the harsh reality was that society didn't see it that way. People loved to judge. No one could escape the nasty gossip of the real world. Slowly, he turned his head to look at Grace. But Grace, she was as cool as ice, acting as if she hadn't heard a single word. She shot Caleb a faint, reassuring smile, completely ignored the murmurs, and guided him straight to his seat at the table, even gently spreading a napkin on his lap. Grace Caleb was just about to suggest they drop the act and tell the truth, but she cut him off. "Just call me by my name." Her message was loud and clear. She wanted him to keep playing the role of her man. Caleb lowered his eyes, his lashes trembling slightly as he swallowed his words and stayed quiet. Since the main targets completely ignored the drama, Jason was left looking like a fool with zero ammo. But after tossing back a few rounds of drinks, Jason seized his chance, grabbing his glass and sliding right into the seat next to Grace. With a slimy grin, he sneered, "Grace, I never expected that after acting so high and mighty, you'd stoop to picking up some divorced leftover. So that's your flavor, huh?" Caleb heard every word. His brows knitted together, instantly sensing that this creep definitely had a twisted obsession with Grace. The hostility and pure disgust in Jason's eyes were blindingly obvious. But Grace? She didn't even spare the guy a glance. Her eyes stayed totally locked on the wine glass in her hand as she dropped a bomb of absolute ice. "What the hell does that have to do with you?" Jason's cocky smile froze. Clearly bruised, he grumbled, "Oh, come on, look at you. I was just cracking a joke. Are we even close?" Grace fired back. "What makes you think you have the right to joke around with me?" Grace was utterly ruthless. Jason's face turned a violent, humiliated red. He shot up from his chair, You really are, eh? Just then, the buddy who invited Jason rushed over and frantically dragged him back. Hey, hey, come over here. Old man Wang wants to take a shot with you. Dragging him into a corner, his friend hissed nervously. I brought you here as my drinking buddy. I still need a massive favor from Grace later. Don't you dare ruin this for me. Jason just let out a petty, cold snort. I just can't stomach that boyfriend of hers. A divorced loser thinking he can just leech his way up the social ladder. What gives him the right? On what basis? Because the guy clearly has game. Didn't you see how he has our Ice Queen Grace totally wrapped around his finger? But Jason wasn't buying it. In terms of cash, status, and raw talent, he firmly believed he was light years ahead of Caleb. In his twisted mind, the man sitting by Grace's side was supposed to be him. Meanwhile, Caleb turned his head, stealing a quiet glance at her. She was still flawlessly untouchable. No matter who tried to talk to her, she barely gave them the time of day. It was as if nothing and no one in this entire world could ever break through her icy walls. Honestly, besides that scumbag Jason, the rest of the room was actually super polite to Caleb. After all, at the end of the day, he was holding the golden ticket as Grace's official boyfriend. Even if they looked down on his past, they didn't dare disrespect her. Leaning in close, Caleb whispered softly, Hey, I'm gonna hit the restroom real quick. Grace instantly shot up from her seat. I'm going with you. No, you don't have to. Stay and chat with the others, Caleb practically begged, but she wasn't having it. Grabbing his hand, she pulled him straight out of the room, dragging him down the restaurant's dimly lit corridor. The muffled sounds of laughter and cheerful dinner chatter drifted through the doors around them, a sharp contrast to his inner turmoil. But between the two of them, absolute, suffocating silence. By the time Caleb finally stepped out of the restroom, he spotted Grace out on the balcony, quietly taking a drag from a slim cigarette. Catching sight of him, she immediately crushed it out. Grace, I totally embarrassed you in there today. I'm so sorry, Caleb muttered, his voice dripping with absolute defeat. What kind of nonsense are you spouting now? Grace replied gently, patting his shoulder to comfort him. It's seriously fine. Stop overthinking everything. Caleb just leaned heavily against the cold railing, staring up at the starry night sky, but his own eyes were completely hollow, totally devoid of light. He honestly thought he could get a fresh start, but his dark past had burned a permanent brand into his soul. It was a hideous, undeniable scar, constantly mocking him for the pathetic mistakes he'd made. Caleb! Grace's sudden voice snapped him right out of his downward spiral. He turned, only to realize her dark eyes were intensely focused on him, unblinking and practically piercing straight through him. What is it? Look, I don't give a damn about any of that, Grace told him, dead serious. When you're with me, you never have to think so hard. Caleb froze, and then it hit him like a ton of bricks. Right. He was just her fake boyfriend, a convenient shield to block all her unwanted creeps. He wasn't exactly marriage material to her. He had taken this whole charade way too seriously, and suddenly, he felt like a total clown. He'd gotten way too lost in the role, but before he could drown in self-pity, Grace suddenly closed the distance between them. His eyes shot wide open in pure shock. Soft, cool lips tasting faintly of rich red wine and tobacco crashed right against his. His brain short-circuited. He completely froze, utterly clueless on what to do, while Grace naturally wrapped her arms tight around his waist. She pulled him closer and closer, holding him so tight it felt like she wanted to fuse their very souls together. What the hell was going on? How did things suddenly escalate to this? When they finally broke apart, Grace slowly opened her eyes and flashed a breathtaking smile. Gently cupping his stunned face, she leaned in and whispered right against his ear, You silly guy, you're supposed to close your eyes when you kiss. But Caleb, still reeling, mumbled, Wait, our relationship isn't supposed to be like this. And what exactly is our relationship? Grace fired back, her tone instantly turning serious. The word siblings was right there on the tip of his tongue, but man, Caleb just couldn't lie to himself enough to actually say it out loud. When our parents passed away, they begged me to take good care of you, but I completely failed. I let you suffer so much. I'm so ashamed of myself, Grace confessed, guilt heavily lacing her words. Caleb instantly stiffened. Without warning, he shoved her away. Oh, so that was it? Was she only kissing him out of some twisted sense of pity and duty to their dead parents? Was that really all this was? He waved her off, forcing a painfully fake smile. I can take care of myself. You seriously don't need to feel guilty. I chose this messy path for myself. Even if it hurts like hell, I'm the one who has to walk it. Nobody else is responsible for my life. I'll take responsibility for my own damn self. With those harsh words, he turned on his heel and stormed off, once again leaving Grace staring at his retreating back. Grace watched him go, her dark eyes filled with unreadable emotion as she looked at that stubborn, tall figure. It was like seeing a ghost from the past. The same boy who had walked away from her exactly like this all those years ago. Just 2 days later, on his day off, Caleb packed up and moved out of Grace's place. Let's be real. After a crazy stunt like that kiss, facing each other every single day was going to be painfully awkward. As he was leaving, Grace didn't ask a single question. Even so, he felt the need to explain, I want to live on my own. Grace didn't say another word, and she sure didn't beg him to stay. Instead, she just quietly helped him haul his bags to the door. I'll drive you, she offered. Caleb instantly shot it down. No need. I barely have any stuff anyway. A cab is fine. I've been a huge burden to you lately, Grace. She cut him off with a chillingly calm tone. Caleb, I'm not your sister. Don't ever call me that again. Caleb froze in his tracks. But thinking about it, she was totally right. After everything, playing pretend siblings was completely off the table. All right, Grace. Goodbye then. Caleb gave a tight smile. Goodbye. Take good care of yourself. Grace gave a small wave, standing silently as she watched his taxi speed away down the street. It wasn't until the cab was a few blocks down that Caleb finally dared to look back. Seeing Grace still standing firmly in that exact same spot, seeing him off, made his brow furrow. Was he just overreacting to all of this? She really had been unbelievably good to him. But if all of this was just to repay some twisted debt, just to fulfill his dead parents' final wish, he couldn't accept that kind of fake love. When he first fell for Evelyn back in the day, it was because he actually believed she loved him for who he was. If he'd sensed even for a split second that Evelyn was just using him, he would have walked away without a second thought. And as for Grace, Caleb just let out a heavy sigh and slowly closed his eyes. Sure, Caleb had to admit he felt a tiny spark for Grace, but that was where it ended. His head was clear, his mind entirely made up. He wasn't about to settle for half measures. He stubbornly wanted a love that was 100% all in. Anything less, he would rather walk away alone. Later that night, while video calling his buddy Ryan, Ryan squinted at the background on the screen. Wait a second. That's not your room. Where in the world are you? Caleb didn't sugarcoat it. I moved out. Ryan's jaw dropped. Dude, why? Caleb gave him the quick rundown of the whole chaotic mess that went down earlier. A heavy silence hung in the air before Ryan finally broke it, unable to hold back his thoughts. Look, man, I get the vibe she actually likes you. She just totally sucks at showing it. But Caleb was completely drained. He was done letting this situation eat him alive. He shook his head. It doesn't matter. We're just a terrible match. It's way better if we just keep our distance, exactly like we used to. Seeing the icy resolve in Caleb's eyes, Ryan backed off. There was clearly no changing his mind now. Still, Ryan couldn't help but feel a sting of regret. Honestly, from a brother's perspective, he thought Grace was a pretty solid catch for a guy like Caleb. The days that followed? Pure, blissful silence. Ever since he packed his bags, Grace hadn't reached out once. Even Evelyn, who usually clung to him like a desperate shadow, had finally vanished. Slowly but surely, Caleb was getting his groove back, but peace never lasts long. Early that morning, Caleb was assigned to check on a new patient. The second he pushed the door open, he froze dead in his tracks. Evelyn was sitting on the hospital bed, looking absolutely wrecked. Her pale face only sparked with a tiny bit of life when her eyes locked onto his. Caleb! He instantly spun on his heel to walk out, but Evelyn cried out in panic. Caleb, wait! I'm not here to ruin your life this time. I'm genuinely sick. Without turning around, Caleb just shot back an icy response. I'll get another doctor to take care of you. Fine. Please. I just need to say one thing. Can you just listen to me for 1 second before you walk away? Evelyn begged, her voice trembling with emotion. Caleb hesitated. If he shut her down now, She would just bounce back and hunt him down later with renewed energy. Might as well rip the bandage off. He marched back to her bedside, swallowing his deep irritation as he listened to her. "Caleb, I'm so sorry. I've done you so horribly wrong this whole time." Her sickly, pale face twisted with genuine sorrow and burning shame. "There's literally 0 point in telling me this now." Caleb had no patience left for her crocodile tears. Seeing his absolutely ruthless attitude, Evelyn's eyes slowly welled up with fresh tears. "I know, but I still need to properly apologize. I'm so sorry. Back then, I didn't actually have feelings for you. I just wanted to use you. I wanted to trick you into falling for me so you'd carry my financial burdens. I was a monster." For the first time, Caleb's cold gaze flickered. "Evelyn, you're finally admitting to your lies. When Ethan was in the hospital, out of all the doctors, you were the only one who stood out. You were totally different. You actually cared. You were incredibly professional. Whenever it was your shift, I knew Ethan was safe. I felt this massive sense of relief. I was the one who snooped around. I specifically asked your coworkers about your personal life. The second I found out you were single, I formulated a master plan. I made it my absolute mission to trap you. At first, I admit it was all a fake act. But as we spent more time together, I actually started falling for you. Hard. Caleb, I swear I'm not lying. I really do love you." Evelyn was getting so worked up she broke into a violent coughing fit. But Caleb, he just stood there like a statue of ice. It didn't matter what this woman did anymore. She couldn't spark even a single drop of pity in his freezing heart. He simply stared down at her in complete silence, pressing his lips into a thin line, refusing to give her a single word. As for Ethan, Evelyn wiped her eyes and desperately raised 3 fingers in a solemn vow. "From day one, I only ever saw him as my little brother. I swear to you, I had 0 idea we weren't actually related by blood. Caleb, please. Do you believe me?" Caleb nodded without a second of hesitation. "Sure, I believe you. Are we done here? But Caleb, can you ever forgive me?" Evelyn stared up at him, completely lost in a daze. She always knew he was gorgeous, especially in his sleek white doctor's coat. But seeing him now, cold and completely detached, he looked more breathtakingly handsome than she remembered. He possessed the kind of striking aura that made it physically impossible for her to look away. "If you promise to treat me like a total stranger from this day forward, then yeah, I'll forgive you," Caleb stated with absolute 0 emotion. "Caleb," she whimpered. Right on cue, a sharp knock hit the door. Liam rolled in on his wheelchair, flashing a knowing smirk. "Dr. Cole, time to roll out." Caleb gave a quick nod. Glancing back at a panicking Evelyn, he dropped his final words. "I'm busy. Get some rest." Without missing a beat, Caleb turned on his heel and walked out. Evelyn's desperate screams chased him down the hall. "Caleb, I can't be just a stranger. I can't. I just can't do it." Deep down, Caleb knew Evelyn was never going to give up her toxic games. The funny thing was, at this point, he couldn't care less. Meanwhile, back at a gloomy rented apartment, Ethan sat slumped in his wheelchair, sobbing like his entire world had just violently shattered. "I tried everything, I swear, but my sister won't even listen to a word I say. It's like Caleb straight up stole her soul. There's literally nothing I can do." He cried out to the shadowy man standing over him, whose face was twisted into a terrifyingly cold, dead stare. Her eyes stayed completely ice-cold as she stared at his pathetic, fake expression. "I don't want to hear your excuses. Since you couldn't get the job done, you better cough up every single cent you swallowed. Grace, please, just give me one more chance, all right? I swear to you. Even if I have to literally tie her up, I will keep my sister away from him." Ethan begged, his voice trembling with anxiety. But Grace's expression remained entirely unbothered. "You know damn well that if you hadn't come to me first, swearing up and down that you could stop Evelyn from obsessing over Caleb, I never would have made that deal with you. Now that you completely blew your promise, what else is there even left to talk about?" Ethan bit his lip hard, tasting iron. He looked like a cornered animal finally making a desperate, agonizing choice. "Don't worry. This time, it absolutely will not happen again, I swear." But the moment Grace walked out that door, Ethan completely lost his mind. He trashed his entire room, smashing everything in sight until it was a total wreck. Caleb, why the hell are you so lucky? Why does every single woman obsess over you? I just want a good life with my sister. Why is that so damn hard? Why? He screamed into the dead silence of the room. No one was there to answer his pathetic cries. Exhausted, he collapsed back into his wheelchair, sobbing so violently it sounded like his very heart was being ripped to shreds. Meanwhile, Caleb slid into the passenger seat of Liam's sleek car. His face was a mask of calm, while Liam, on the other hand, looked like he was in a fantastic mood. Liam casually sparked up a conversation. So, was that your ex-girlfriend? Or ex-wife? Caleb didn't bother hiding the truth, and surprisingly, Liam didn't look shocked at all. Honestly, he actually seemed pretty thrilled by Caleb's blunt honesty. He gave an approving nod. Smart man. You know what they say, never go back to an old flame. There are still way too many amazing women out there in the world anyway. Caleb's brows pulled together in a slight frown. He shot Liam a highly suspicious look, getting this weird gut feeling that there was a hidden meaning behind those words. But for the moment, Liam just smiled and kept quiet. Later that afternoon, Liam strolled right out of his corporate conference room and walked straight up to Caleb. Acting like the perfect gentleman, he threw out a smooth invitation. Dr. Cole, would you do me the absolute honor of joining me for dinner? Caleb was just opening his mouth to politely shoot him down, but Liam quickly beat him to the punch. You've already rejected me once. If you shoot me down again, my ego might not survive to ask a third time. Defeated, Caleb could only let out a helpless smile. Look, last time, I seriously had urgent business to handle. So, does that mean I get the honor tonight? Liam's smile was incredibly gentle, giving off a warm, sunny vibe that instantly put people at ease. Faced with that, Caleb found it practically impossible to say no. All right, fine. I'll go request some time off then. Liam just casually waved a hand. Don't even worry about it. I'll have my assistant handle your boss. Come on, let's head straight to the restaurant. But what totally blew Caleb's mind was that for a casual dinner, Liam had actually rented out the entire damn restaurant. Sure, Caleb knew Liam was a wildly successful young hotshot, and even though he was born with a silver spoon as a wealthy heir, the guy was a brilliant powerhouse in his own right. He definitely had the cash to pull this off, but renting out an entire upscale restaurant just for two guys to grab a bite was ridiculously over the top. The sheer extravagance of it sent Caleb's mind spiraling with red flags. So, is the atmosphere to your liking? Liam asked, flashing that signature warm smile. Yeah, it's great. But you seriously spent way too much money on this, Caleb replied, his smile feeling entirely forced. Liam's eyes suddenly grew a lot darker and far more intense. I only booked out the whole place for one simple reason, Liam explained smoothly. I just wanted to have a nice, quiet conversation with you. I absolutely didn't want anyone interrupting us. Caleb gave a slow nod, even though his brain was screaming, wondering what on earth he and this billionaire even had to talk about. They weren't exactly tight. At the absolute most, they were just a doctor and his patient. But as the dinner rolled on, Caleb slowly started seeing Liam in a completely different light. The guy was a master conversationalist, flawlessly catering to Caleb's specific tastes. Every single topic he casually dropped happened to be right up Caleb's alley. It was blatantly obvious that Liam had done some serious background research. Yet, the more perfect Liam acted, the more Caleb's internal alarm bells started ringing. When another guy showed this level of intense, laser-focused interest in you, it was impossible not to feel totally paranoid about his true motives. Luckily, the dinner wrapped up without Liam dropping any crazy bombshells. He honestly acted like he just wanted to shoot the breeze, catching up like two old buddies. Eventually, Liam's luxury ride pulled up, dropping Caleb off right in front of his apartment complex. After waving a quick goodbye, Caleb was just turning toward the gates when his phone started buzzing. The moment Grace's name flashed on the screen, he completely froze in his tracks. He just stood there staring at the glowing screen for a few heavy seconds before finally snapping out of it and swiping to answer. Hello? The name Grace was right on the tip of his tongue, but remembering those harsh final words she had thrown at him the day they split, he swallowed the name back down. What exactly are you doing right now? Grace's tone was chillingly calm and perfectly composed, as always. I literally just got back from grabbing dinner with a patient. Caleb decided to just tell the straight truth. Oh? The same guy I heard in the background on the phone the other day? The one begging to take you out? Grace pressed on. Yeah, that's him, Caleb admitted. I already shot him down once before, so saying no a second time felt way too awkward. Caleb sighed helplessly. All right, just make sure you go inside early, Grace replied. But wait. Caleb's heart skipped a beat as a sudden realization hit him. Hold on. How do you know I'm not inside my apartment yet? He hadn't said a single word about his location, so how the hell did Grace know he was standing outside? Could it actually be? He had only taken 5 steps into the courtyard, but he instantly spun on his heel and sprinted right back to the main gates. And there it was. Parked quietly in the shadows right outside his complex was Grace's familiar car. Without another word, he killed the call and marched straight toward her window. Grace hopped out of the car in a flash, holding the passenger door wide open for him. Get in, it's freezing out here. Caleb just stood there, frozen. After turning it over in his mind, he finally spoke. Did you need me for something specific? We could head upstairs and talk. Grace paused, clearly caught off guard. Are you sure it's not a hassle? Not at all. It's totally fine. Caleb shook his head with a soft chuckle. Come on, let's go. Honestly, he'd been bracing himself for a completely awkward reunion. For the longest time, Caleb had been low-key terrified of running into Grace again. But now that she was actually standing right in front of him, everything just felt ridiculously natural. A massive wave of relief washed over him. After all, he and Grace used to be family. Even if it wasn't exactly romance, their bond ran way deeper than your average friends. Hearing his invitation, a warm smile spread across Grace's face. She quickly locked up the car and followed Caleb straight into the apartment building. On the walk over, Grace reached out to gently fasten his coat buttons. Are you settling into this place all right? That simple, caring gesture made Caleb's chest feel unbelievably warm. Looking back, she had literally always been this sweet and considerate. Honestly, a woman as stunning and kind-hearted as Grace should have guys lining up around the block. So, how in the world had she stayed single for all these years? Were her standards just impossibly high? Yeah, it's pretty great, he replied. The best part is being close to work, so I get to sleep in a bit. Caleb flashed a relaxed, easygoing smile. Seeing him so upbeat, a flash of complicated emotion crossed Grace's eyes, but she hid it so fast that Caleb didn't even notice. The two of them made their way up the stairs. The second they stepped inside, the lights flickered on for a split second before dying completely. The entire apartment was plunged into pitch-black darkness. Pure instinct kicked in, and Caleb reached out for the person next to him only to accidentally wrap his arm right around Grace's waist, pulling a sharp, muffled gasp from her lips. Ah, my bad, he stammered. Grace just laughed softly. It's totally fine. You just tickled me. As she spoke, she reached out and smoothly wrapped her fingers around Caleb's hand. Her hand was incredibly soft. So delicate it felt almost weightless. Caleb was honestly terrified of holding on too tight, scared he might actually hurt her. Do you happen to have any candles? Grace asked in the dark. Yeah, hold on. Caleb navigated over to the TV stand, fumbled with the drawer, and pulled one out. The small flame flared to life, casting a warm, flickering glow across the room. Have a seat. I'll go pour you some water. But Grace gently stopped him. Don't go to any trouble. I'm just going to talk to you for a second, and then I'll head out. Caleb finally settled onto the couch. Caleb, I was way too reckless the other day. Feelings have to be a two-way street. I really should have asked how you felt first, Grace said, her voice heavy with sincerity. Hearing those words, Caleb's entire body tensed up like a coiled spring. He couldn't run from this anymore. He had to face the music. Taking a deep, shaky breath, Caleb slowly exhaled, desperately trying to keep his cool. Feigning total indifference, he muttered, Look, it's all in the past. Let's just drop it. Grace chewed on that for a second before giving a slow nod. Fair enough. Then let's clear the air completely tonight, and we'll never bring it up ever again. Caleb honestly didn't know whether he should burst out laughing or start crying. He never saw it coming, the normally straight-laced, dead serious. Grace was actually playing mind games with him. He was definitely seeing a whole new side of her today. But before Caleb could even process what was happening, Grace dropped an absolute bombshell. Caleb, I'm going to pursue you. This time, Caleb's brain totally short-circuited. He sat there, utterly paralyzed. What the hell had just happened? How did they jump straight to this? Grace, meanwhile, looked as cool as a cucumber, completely unfazed. Yet, the intensity in her eyes was dead serious. I've been doing a lot of soul-searching these past few days. I definitely messed up how I said things before, and that threw you off. Caleb, I want to be with you simply because I'm crazy about you. Caleb's chest tightened as a tidal wave of emotion slammed into him. He felt this crazy mix of lingering hurt, sudden excitement, and a million other things he couldn't even name. For a split second, a whirlwind of feelings completely swallowed him whole. When I said I promised Mom and Dad I'd look after you, I was just trying to be smart, giving myself the perfect, bulletproof excuse to stay close. I honestly thought that if I played it that way, everything would just magically work out, and I could finally have you. I never dreamed it would backfire this spectacularly. God, I was such an idiot. Mid-sentence, Grace abruptly stood up, stepping right into his personal space, and gently wrapped her hands around his. Her skin was freezing cold, giving away just how terrified she actually was. You probably won't believe this, but from the very first second we met, I never wanted to just be your sister. I worked my absolute hardest to be perfect, just so I could finally catch your eye. I just wanted you to truly see me. Grace's dark eyes locked onto Caleb, refusing to even blink. She wasn't hiding the raw, desperate longing in them anymore. Caleb just stared blankly at the girl in front of him, his heart doing total gymnastics. Grace had pushed herself to the absolute limit, grinding to be perfect, all just to make him look her way. But honestly, Grace was just too perfect, and her flawless track record only pushed him further away, sparking this stubborn, rebellious need to just escape it all. Looking back, it was a beautiful, chaotic mistake. One wrong move, and they could have lost each other for an entire lifetime. The two of them just froze there, locked in this heavy, suffocating silence. Finally, Caleb snapped out of it, slowly slipping his hand from her desperate grip as he stood up. Staring at his retreating back, the soaring hope in Grace's chest just popped. All that joy instantly evaporated into thin air. Did she seriously just strike out again? She let out a bitter, self-deprecating laugh. Sure, it stung with crushing disappointment and regret, but she couldn't even bring herself to hate him for it. If she was going to point fingers, she only had her own sluggish timing to blame. In this world, you miss your shot with the right person, and you're paying for it forever. Grace Winters. Suddenly, his voice cut through the silence. Grace practically turned to stone. In all their time together, he had never times called her by her full name like that. It sounded so incredibly foreign, yet dangerously intimate. Staring out the window at the pitch-black night, with his back still turned, Caleb softly dropped a bombshell. I accept. Wait, what? You're actually letting me pursue you? Grace's eyes blew wide open, instantly flooding with pure, unrestrained delight. Shooting up to her feet, she whispered a breathless yes, her lips pulling into this massive, uncontrollable grin. You could literally see the stars shining in her eyes. This overwhelming wave of sheer happiness had crashed into her way too fast. It felt like a total fever dream. Losing every last shred of her usual cool composure, she closed the gap in seconds, grabbing Caleb by the shoulders and spinning him right around to face her. The room was dimly lit, swimming in shadows. Silver moonlight spilled through the glass, catching the perfect angles of Caleb's face and giving him this absurdly gorgeous, almost angelic glow. When he spoke, it was like absolute music to her ears. Yeah, you can chase me. But fair warning, I am definitely not an easy catch. You'd better bring your A-game. A soft, genuine smile instantly melted across Grace's face. She almost never showed this kind of raw emotion, entirely shedding that icy, untouchable boss lady vibe she usually wore. Watching her light up, Caleb couldn't help but realize that the longer he stared at her, the more insanely captivating she became. With zero hesitation, she threw her arms around him, clutching him like he was the most precious treasure on earth. Caleb, I am so incredibly happy. I really am. For once, Caleb just surrendered. He let her hold him tight, closing his eyes as he breathed in the faint, comforting scent of her perfume. Deep down, a quiet joy blossomed in his own chest. Now, Let me tell you, Grace was absolutely a woman of action. The second she got the green light, she instantly activated total pre-girlfriend mode. This woman was taking this pursuit dead seriously. We're talking chauffeuring him to the hospital, delivering 3 perfect meals a day, showering him with flowers, and planning immaculate dates. She handled every single detail like a total pro. Caleb didn't have to lift a single finger for anything. Plus, she was constantly hitting him with these adorable little surprises. Oh, and she made it incredibly public. It was like she wanted the entire planet to know that Caleb was officially taken off the market. Her mission? Scare off any wannabe rivals. And naturally, this completely derailed Liam, the guy who had secretly been crushing on Caleb and wanted to play the long game. Now, he was utterly panicking. After getting blatantly rejected for a date multiple times, Liam panicked and decided to drop a massive Hail Mary right then and there. This guy literally set up a whole romantic display right in the hospital courtyard and pulled off a flashy, ultra-public proposal. Caught completely off guard, Caleb was just frozen in shock. And let me be clear, he didn't find this cute or romantic in the slightest. Actually, it felt like an incredibly cringy spectacle that was totally humiliating them both. Dr. Cole, you are hands down the most incredible man I have ever met. Your unmatched skill and endless devotion, quite literally, gave me a second chance at life. My heart, my entire world, belongs to you. Liam poured his heart out, practically drowning in his own affection, blissfully blind to the fact that Caleb's face was twisting into sheer, unadulterated disgust. Ha! Great. Just another guy looking for a glorified babysitter to nurse him through life. So, right there in front of the massive crowd, Caleb brutally shut him down, leaving zero room for debate. Look, I'm sorry. I already have a girlfriend, and we are dead set on getting married. She treats me like absolute royalty. She completely spoils me rotten, and I am ridiculously in love with her. The hopeful smile plastered on Liam's face instantly shattered, melting into this devastating, hollow look of defeat. He was just 1 second too late. Someone had already claimed the prize. But refusing to back down, Liam forced a pathetic, tragic, hero smile. It's fine. I can wait for you. Caleb stared at him like he was crazy. Wait for me? What? Yeah. As long as there's no ring on that finger, the game isn't over. Liam tried his hardest to look charming. I'm not giving up on us. Caleb just rolled his eyes, utterly exhausted. Look, do whatever you want, buddy. That's your problem. Without wasting another breath, he spun on his heel and stormed right out of the hospital, not casting a single glance backward. But the second he pushed through the main gates, he spotted Grace sprinting frantically toward him. He stopped dead in his tracks. Rushing forward, Grace yanked him right into a fiercely protective embrace, her voice incredibly soft as she murmured, "Hey, it's okay. I've got you. I'm right here." Caught off guard, Caleb honestly didn't know whether to burst out laughing or start crying. I was totally fine. Why are you panicking so hard? But she just squeezed him even tighter, burying her face into his shoulder as she whispered, "Listen to me, Caleb. From now on, you never have to be the one taking care of everyone else. Just let me be the one to take care of you, okay?" Hearing those desperate, fiercely loving words, Caleb's entire world just stopped. For his entire life, ever since he first put on that white coat, he had always been the one saving everyone else. But finally, someone was here to save him. For the first time in his entire life, Caleb was told he didn't have to carry the weight of the world on his shoulders. He slowly lifted his gaze, looking deep into Grace's eyes. "Are you serious? Can you really take care of me for the rest of my life?" Grace nodded without a single ounce of hesitation. "Did you forget? I promised our folks I'd look after you forever. Plus, it's what I've always wanted. They just gave me the perfect, official excuse to do it." Caleb let her words sink in, savoring the absolute warmth of them. Slowly, a genuine smile broke through his usual guarded expression. "All right, Grace. As of right now, you're my girlfriend. I'm officially accepting your confession." Beaming, Grace threw her arms around him in a tight hug. "Well then, boyfriend, you'd better take good care of me too." But before they could enjoy the moment, a furious scream shattered the air. Evelyn came charging out of the hospital doors, looking like absolute death in her flimsy gown, with Ethan trailing right behind her in his wheelchair. Get back here. You are not walking away with Caleb. You two can't be together. I absolutely forbid it. Evelyn shrieked, losing her mind. Without missing a beat, Grace stepped in front of Caleb to shield him, marched right up to Evelyn, and delivered a brutal, ringing slap across her face. Since Evelyn was already sick and frail, that single slap sent her staggering backward until she crumbled weakly to the pavement. Grace, if you want to hit someone, hit me. Leave my sister alone. Ethan panicked, tumbling out of his wheelchair to shield Evelyn. Grace couldn't even be bothered to give the pathetic duo a second glance. She simply grabbed Caleb's hand, totally ready to walk away. But from the ground, Evelyn spat venomously. Caleb, aren't you and your sister doing the exact same disgusting thing? What gives you the high ground to judge me and Ethan? Caleb froze in his tracks, glancing back at the pathetic siblings huddled in the dirt. For the record, we were never biological siblings, and we didn't even grow up under the same roof. But whatever. You're literally just my crazy ex-wife. Why am I even explaining myself to you? Your twisted opinions mean absolutely nothing to me. Grace chimed in with ice in her voice. Ethan, I gave you 2 chances to back off. Since you couldn't hold up your end of the bargain, expect a court summons. Dropping that absolute bombshell, the 2 of them hopped into their car and sped off without looking back. The 2 shattered siblings were left rotting on the concrete. Sis, I can't go to prison. I just can't. Ethan sobbed uncontrollably. But Evelyn just stared blankly down the road like a total psycho, muttering, No, you're mine, Caleb. You're all mine. Safe inside the car, Caleb finally asked the burning question. I've been meaning to ask, did you and Ethan have some shady deal going on? Yep, he needed cash to play the stock market, so he promised he'd keep Evelyn far away from you in exchange. He hit me up for $1 million, Grace confessed smoothly, not hiding a single detail. Caleb's jaw practically hit the floor. Wait, isn't that straight-up extortion? But Grace just shook her head. If he actually kept you safe and gave you peace, it would have been worth every penny. Too bad he failed. Caleb sighed, closing his eyes. Whatever. Let's not let those toxic losers ruin our vibe. They aren't worth our energy. Grace turned to him with a soft smile, gently squeezing his hand. You're right. Let's just go home. A soft smirk played on Caleb's lips. Yeah, let's go home.